Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 2021 meeting of the Parks, Recreation, Waterfront, and Resiliency Committee, being held over Zoom as usual for the foreseeable future, at least. As usual, my name is Michael Marino. I am the Zoom facilitator for the meeting. I'm just going to go over some quick Zoom etiquette things, and then Trevor Holland, who's the chair of the committee, will get the meeting started. The chat feature is enabled only to come to me as the host, and we ask everyone who is not a community board member on the Parks Committee to sign in using the chat feature with your name, and if you are affiliated with an organization or community group, to add that as well when you sign in. If you are not able to sign in because you're on the phone, that's fine, don't worry about it. But those of you who are able to sign in and access the chat feature, please sign in with your name and any affiliation. And again, the chat only comes to me, so we are asking that you use it only for attendance purposes and or if you have any technical issues with the Zoom meeting. If there's information that presenters want to disseminate to the whole group, everybody in attendance, they will send that to me, and then I will send it out to everybody so that everybody can access it. We do share the screen a lot during this meeting, as we are doing right now. So if you want to change the settings on the shared screen, you would do that in the menu at the top of your screen. You can swap the settings so that you're seeing people's faces rather than what's being shared on the screen. And you can adjust that accordingly based on your likes or dislikes. We ask everyone to stay muted during the meeting. We allow you to unmute yourself when you are called on to speak. So we ask everyone to just respect that. Typically, the way the meeting is run is that Trevor, who is the chair, will have the agency that's here to present on any particular item do the presentation first. He will then go to community board members who are on the Parks Committee for questions and comments. Then he will go to other community board members who are not on the Parks Committee for questions and comments. And I see that there's a handful of them with us tonight. And then he will open it up to the public for questions and comments. Public, please keep in mind that you are limited to 2 minutes. We ask you to abide by this, as there are a lot of things on the agenda tonight that we would like to cover. And we do use the raise hand feature when we do this. If you are not familiar with the raise hand feature, you find it typically on the participants tab. Again, when we're not sharing the screen, the tools are at the bottom of your screen. When we are sharing the screen, at least for me, the tools are at the top. So it might change for you as well. So just go to the participants tab and you'll see the option to raise your hand there. And I believe that is it. This meeting is recorded for open law purposes and will be posted on our YouTube channel probably within the next 24 to 48 hours. And if you are on the phone, for those of you on the phone, to mute and unmute yourself, it is *6. To raise your hand to speak, it is *9. And I see that we have one person with their hand raised already. I'm not quite sure what they want. So do you want to tell us what you need? 646-301.
Yep, sorry, that was just a error. I meant to hit *6 just to unmute myself for the future. But,
no problem. I'll lower your hand. Thanks. All right, Trevor,
thanks.
Take it away.
All right, thank you, Michael. I think he went over all the things we need to know at the beginning of this meeting. We're going to try and keep this meeting moving as quickly as we can, but to allow for everyone to participate. And as Michael has mentioned, if you think the minute timer or the agenda is too large, just adjust your controls and you can see more people or less people. That way you can feel like you're participating more in the meeting, even though we are over Zoom. First up, we're going to do approve of the minutes. The minutes were sent out. Are there any objections to the minutes? And we're also going to take attendance that way. Ryan, can you take attendance?
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Kay Webster.
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, yes. David Adams.
Yes.
Yaron Altman.
I don't see him on.
Carlin Chan,
Don't see him on either.
Valentina Jones,
Yes.
Michael Marino,
Yes.
Robin Chattel,
Yes.
Josephine Velez,
I don't see her on.
Troy Velez. Okay, that's it.
It must be summertime. But let's continue. We have 3 speakers who have signed up to speak on topics other than what's on the agenda. So we're going to let them speak first. Just to cue yourselves, first up will be Robin. Next will be Val. And following that will be Halal. Keep in mind that we do use a 2-minute timer to make sure we move efficiently. The timer will be placed. So Robin, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Robin Chattel, and I'm a resident of the Hillman Housing Co-op, which is runs from it's on Grant Street from Willard Street down to Columbia and past that. So I'm voicing my concerns about the Luther Gulick Park, which is the new pocket park that was renovated about a year ago. It's runs from Willard Street to Columbia Street on Delancey. It butts the sides of our complex and other residential complexes as well. It's a beautiful renovation. I think the city spent something like $5 million. It was a team effort with community members. However, as the weather's getting warmer, the park is being used a lot, which is fantastic by all ages and all groups. But it's become also a late night hangout. Loud amplified music is being played. People are barbecuing and having picnics. The trash is piling up. I've never seen anybody in there. It doesn't seem to me that there's any parks employee at all who's working in this park or responsible for it. And the gate is often left open very late at night. I just was concerned when I saw that actually the park is supposed to close at 1 a.m., which seems like an awful late open hours for a residential neighborhood. So again, I'm not the only one here to let you know about this. I'm part of a co-op of 853 units. And because I sit on the community board, people know that and have been asking me what to do about this, but I'm only voicing again, our co-ops and resident neighbors concerns about the noise, which I think is just going to get worse as the summer progresses. Again, barbecuing, late night amplified music playing, filth and garbage everywhere. I guess that's really all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. Next up is Val.
Hi, my name is Valentina Jones, and I'm here on behalf of the Lower East Side Power Partnership. We wrote a letter on May 20th to the Parks Department, the Police Department, and to the Department of Health, advocating for a holistic approach to drug addiction in the parks on the Lower East Side. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, drug addiction is a complex disease, and so therefore we think a holistic approach is what's needed. So we're advocating that any walkthroughs and interventions in the park on the Lower East Side include workers with information on available and convenient drug addiction treatment. Factors such as stress also greatly affect persons' likelihood of drug use, according to the article from the National Institute of Drug Abuse. And so we have seen positive interactions of the 7th Precinct and Community Affairs, and would hope that they continue. So that's just our thought. Several people on our group are retired teachers, nurses, drug counselors, etc. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Val. And the last speaker will be Hilal.
Hello, my name is Hilal Navi. I live on the Lower East Side. I was born here, raised here my whole life. And I'm calling, this is my first time ever doing this, but I'm calling in regards to Luther Gulick Park. I'm living here on the same block my whole life. And since they reopened the park in September, which is a nice idea, but the park is very, very noisy. And if it's not the young children screaming and screeching at the top of their lungs, it's young adults shouting and hollering. And this goes on throughout the day, night, dusk. It makes no difference. Please, can you or someone do something? Put a curfew. It has to be closed sooner. It's a residential area. Anyone who lives in the amalgamated dwellings or in the Hillman housing like I do, and lives on a low floor facing the park, it's murder. You're suffering in your apartment. And basically, it just will go on. It's open-ended. If there is some kind of, let's say, 8 p.m. or sundown closure, then at least the Parks Department or the New York City Police would have something to go by. Right now, it's just open-ended. It has to stop. It's just too noisy for a residential area. So I want to be brief and say, if you lived here like I do, you would understand right away. This is not trivial. It's not silly. It is really that very is life or very quality of life issue, and something has to be done. So please look into doing something about the hours. Close the park earlier, 8 p.m. or sundown throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Halal. Just for purposes of this meeting, we will have the Parks Manager give an update. He may be answer a few brief questions on that particular part.
Thank you.
Continuing, we're going to start with the rest of the agenda. And first up is the Parks Manager update. Jamil.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Currently, right now, we're still trying to hire more staff.
Jamil,
yes?
Can you just introduce yourself and your position? I know there's some new people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Jamel Phillips. I'm the district manager for 3 for the Parks Department. All right. The first agenda item, we're still in the midst of hiring staff. Our staffing numbers are still low. We're still trying to get a good enough number so we can have a PM schedule tour for the whole district. So we're trying to have a 1:30 to 10 tour at large parks and small parks so we have staff on site to maintain. Currently right now, we have only received, I would say, close to 8 staff from the seasonal hiring we just recently got. On the 26th of June, we'll have the official pool opening. We're going to have Hamfish, Dry Dock, and Tompkins mini pool that will be opening in our district. I'm also going to give you the comfort station status. We have opening dates for McKinley, which would be late June. For the comfort station, the playground should be completed by late July. Baruch should be opening up late July. And Corliss Hook, we have a site meeting tomorrow. Hopefully, that should open up late June. We're still having serious issues with graffiti and drug issues throughout the district. We have 2 big volunteer programs in the next 2 weeks. We have one this weekend, Saturday, at Nation Strauss. We'll be painting benches, and we're repainting the retaining wall in the park and in the handball court area. So Lane, we're doing a volunteer group the following Saturday. We'll have a group coming out to help us clean up and do planting. That's the report for District 3.
And Jamil,
Trevor, you want me to give?
Yes, go ahead, unless Jamal is here.
Do you want me to give the stuff for District 2 that you asked, the information you asked for?
Correct.
All right, give me 1 second.
And if you could also comment on Luther Gillick, if you have any. If I know it's new, you're just hearing it, if you could comment on that, that would be helpful.
No, which is not a problem. I mean, part of the problem with Luther Gullick, it being a new park, again, we lock up the whole borough of Manhattan. My staff that do the south side, they go to the west side and make their way to the east side. We lock up District 2, District 1, and then District 3. Typically, our staff is on the 1:30 every night. They usually get to District 3 roughly around 12 o'clock, and they get it completed, locking up all properties roughly around 1:15. What I can do is I can make a notation. I can send an email to Commissioner Castro suggesting an early closure, but it has to come from him. And we do have a dedicated staff person. Unfortunately, he's been having attendance issues. He's been sick, so he's been out for a while, but we usually try to find a way to pull someone from another park to put him at Luther Gullick. And also on top of that, that's the only park that we have a sprinkler issue in. Prior to the season of the warm weather, we had a supervisor cut on the irrigation system, which flooded the pit and blew out all the electrical stuff. Shops has been on site for the last 2 or 3 days trying to correct it. I'm hopefully by the end of this weekend or early next weekend, the contractor and engineers can figure out the way to get the system to work. For a District 2 update, Pier 35, the drinking fountains are on. Plumbers are still working on reactivating the irrigation system. The East River Esplanade gardener, he retired recently. They're working on a replacement, but there's a city hiring freeze for permanent workers. So they're trying to get a seasonal gardener to work out of the Esplanade. The district has a morning crew and a night crew that maintains Pier 35 daily. They're still receiving seasonal staff to help with weekday and weekend and early morning cleanups. Columbus Park district is working with electricians to restore lights in the pavilion at Columbus Park. There's been a 301 service thing generated. We're waiting for DOT to assist with the correction of lights. That's my report.
Okay, thank you. I see two questions. I'm going to ask a quick one on the irrigation and the gardener, because the gardener retired, and that Esplanade and Pier 35 were funded by different sources. So they didn't receive any budget cuts. So it's just sad to see that there's not a gardener there, and there's problems in the Esplanade. So if you could follow up on when they expect to have a gardener for all those new plants, that'd be much appreciated. And when the irrigation system, which is brand new, will be up and running.
Got you, no problem.
I'm going to go by, obviously, Parks members first. I see you, Michael. You have your hand raised, but I'll go to Kay first.
Lee had his hand. Oh, anyway, yes, I'm on the committee. Sorry. I mostly wanted to thank Jamel for doing the walkthrough with us, and we also do have in our park and are in very good touch with Goddard Homeless Outreach and Alliance for Positive Change, in case anyone was worried. We are seeing an uptick in a lot of heroin and fentanyl sales. The police arrested somebody in our neighborhood who was selling huge amounts, and he was out in 2 days. So we continue to have big struggles. But on the good side, on Juneteenth, the Mephinda-Kalinga Garden is going to have an event, and maybe Robin wants to say more. Brian, sorry. I also just am very excited about the Lower East Side Ecology. That's it.
Thank you, Kay. Robin, and then Michael.
Hi, thanks. Hi, Jamil. I imagine you were on earlier and heard what I said, or some of the other guys said about Luther Gulick Park. I don't know if there is something that I've noticed also, just as a person on the Parks Committee not speaking, that there's a lot of garbage piling up. I don't know if there's a regular schedule picking up garbage. Maybe we need more cans in the park. There's always a lot of overflow on the cans. I think there's like only 1 or 2 cans in the park. I don't know if that's something that could be dealt with or taken care of. That would help, because as you know, we're in a very rat-infested corner of that corner is very highly rat infested. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin.
Robin, am I? Oh.
Go ahead, Jamil.
No, to let you know, unfortunately, for the last 2-3 weeks, we've had two of our packers out of service. We had one brand new one, and we're waiting to get the I forgot what you call it. It's a tag on it for us to dump it. So it's been stuck on Randall's Island, and we had another one recently serviced that was out for 2 weeks. We got the one back. We're waiting for the larger one to come, hopefully get the tag so we could legally dump. We should have it by next week. So that should help with the garbage of us picking up garbage. That was the issue we had throughout the district.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much for letting me know. Thank you. I'll let people know. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Michael?
Sam, do you want to say anything in response to any of this, since you're with Parks before I answer?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Jamil, I thank you so much for all the work you're doing. I know you're very popular in this community, as you should be, because you're totally responsive.
Sam, can you tell everyone who you are?
Yes, I'm Chief of Staff for the Parks Department and Assistant Commissioner for Community Outreach and Partnership Development. And actually I have a question for you, Jamil, and you may not know this and we can track it down, but do you know if your district is getting, I assume they are getting City Cleanup Corps staff who are set to come online it's a new influx of seasonal CPWs, city park workers, who are set to come online in the next couple of months. This is a city program with federal funding that's bringing more city park workers, people who clean the parks, into the system over the next couple of months. And I know Manhattan is getting more than a couple hundred, and I believe many of them are destined for the Lower East Side. So that may have an effect on the parks in question.
So a good thing this week, we received 2 CPWs. We're in the midst of even getting a maintenance worker that'll also help us with the rat abatement. Each week it's improving with the numbers we're getting with staffing. It's just trying to get in a regular routine. Unfortunately, we have a lot of call outs, which affects our operations daily, but trying to kind of hit the areas that need to get attention. We've been focused, and I'm fully aware of what's going on at Luther Gullick and other parks. We're just trying to find a good staff person to fit that location, which is sometimes difficult. But we have gotten some of the seasonal staffing. We just need more, unfortunately, right now.
And I think more is coming, but let me ask Castor about it. And I'm sorry to be another person to put you on the spot, like put someone from your team. But I appreciate the answer, and I will look into it. We can get you guys an answer.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you can skip me. I texted Jamal my questions since it's specific to my part.
Okay, and Sam, if you could follow up with the community board on those federally funded workers, that'd be helpful. We'd like to see 90% of them down here at CB3.
I'm afraid that's not how it works, but yeah, well, I do think you guys are getting some, so I will look into it.
Ryan, you just muted yourself.
I'm just following up on what Kay said, which is on June 19th, Saturday, June 19th at Mfindikalunga Community Garden. FAB is participating in their Juneteenth celebration, and one of the features is that we've commissioned an artist, Dennis Redmond Darkeem, who is both Indigenous and African American, to create a new art installation and a procession that will be happening that honors Indigenous and Black histories of the Lower East Side. So we're going to be there Saturday, June 19th, starting at noon, and festivities will run for till about 2:30 or 3. We'd love to see some of you there.
Thank you, Ryan. Lee, yes, I think Lee is the only person remaining as a community board member. So go ahead, Lee.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to ask Jamil and Sam Biederman about, as well as bring to the committee's continued attention, the situation that those who live near the East River Park Amphitheater about the chronic problem of illegal pop-up parties with amplified music at the amphitheater with no action by parks and usually no action by the NYPD. This past Sunday evening from 9 p.m. till about 1:30 a.m. Monday morning, there was yet another pop-up rave at the amphitheater. It was advertised on social media, attracting partygoers from as far as Kentucky, with hundreds of people, generators, garbage strewn about, and club speakers booming bass and music into the apartments nearby. It took multiple calls to 311 and the precinct for hours to finally get some action. This amphitheater is frequently illegally used for pop-ups as well as by a local DJ who have no compunction about operating with or without a permit, after hours, any day of the week, frequently until past 2 a.m., and allowing the bass to permeate apartments nearby so that residents can feel and hear the bass even with their windows closed. Parks, the 7th Precinct, and our elected representatives and this committee have been made aware of this nuisance for years now. The concerns of residents who live near licensed establishments and are affected by noise that constitute a nuisance are listened to, as well they should be. However, the track record here, including previous statements by the Parks Department, who have admitted that they have no standards for the audio levels audible in apartments across from the amphitheater, is just abysmal. We'd really like your help, both locally at the parks managers level, as well as up at the Arsenal. This has been going on for years, and it's only getting worse. Thank you.
Sam or Jamil, if you want to comment. Well, we'd like for you to come in.
What I'll do for my end, I could reach out to Pep. Pep is now working a later schedule due to the improved weather. I could talk to them about that. Tompkins and Amphitheater is on their radar. I'll speak to them tomorrow morning to make sure this weekend they know to come there late in the evening to check to make sure that if there are any raves, they can address the situation.
We'd appreciate that. And just so you know, it's not just on the weekends. The local DJ is frequently there on nice days and overnights during the week as well. But anything you can do to help is appreciated.
All right, thank you. Susan.
Yeah, thanks. As far as the city workers, you know, the mayor's office called the community board and we got together on, you know, some places to start, but they weren't in parks. So it'd be good to be able to deal with this holistically. So parks could let us, if they're being assigned separately from the mayor's office and from parks, it would be good to know that from everyone so we could look at it. And as far as the DJs in the park and these pop-up things, again, that's a community problem. So Washington Square Park is closed, so they're coming over to Tompkins. So now we're keeping them out of Tompkins and they're going down to the amphitheater. We need to, and we're working on that. We're actually working with Bill Castro on that. So I'm glad I know about the amphitheater so we can talk about it all as one problem, because otherwise we're just squeezing it into parts of the park.
All right, thank you. And I know there's some other folks who'd like to ask questions of the parks manager, but typically this is just an update. So we're going to move on. Jamil will be available and you can also put your question in the chat, which will get a response. Typically this is just an update. So we're going to move on to our next topic, which is the ESCR update. And there are some updates that might be interesting. Desiree, if you want to share your screen and begin your
Trevor,
presentation.
I'll do that now. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
And Desiree, while you're doing that, are we going to merge the Ecology Center update into this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's fine.
And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Alda is on the line as well to give a
Correct.
Parks interim update. So that is also going to be part of this. The ESCR construction update should be fairly short, and then the time will focus on the other items. So good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Desiree Gazzo from HNTB Lero, the program management, construction management team for the ESCR project. I'm here with some of my team members, as well as some of our colleagues from DDC and our partner agencies. So we're going to give you a brief update on the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. So just a quick overview of what we'll talk about today. So we'll have an overview of the contracts as we typically do. We have 1 or 2 quick community engagement items to provide updates on. As I mentioned, Alda from Parks will provide an interim recreation update. And then at the very end, we'll do a what we've heard, where we'll provide some good news on funding. And then we have Manelli from the mayor's office. We have Ben from DSNY and Alda from Parks to provide an update on the compost area. So again, just quickly, you know, the project area, which we go over all the time, the 3 main parts of the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project, PA1 here, and then Project Area 2, which is currently under construction, for those who might be new to the call tonight, and then Parallel Conveyance, which are the portions of the project that run kind of within both areas. So for an update on Project Area 1, Ophelia Rivas from DDC is on the call.
Yes, thanks, Desiree. Hi, everyone. Ophelia Rivas from DDC. For PA1, the award letter was sent to the lowest responsive And responsible bidder was IPC Resiliency Partners, and we're proceeding with procurement. The community boards were notified accordingly. And as the next part, the next step for procurement process is to send to the comptroller for registration. But at this time, we don't have a particular date chosen. But as usual, we'll continue to provide updates as we receive new information to the community board. Thanks, Desiree.
Great, thank you. And then, as I think most people know, Project Area 2, the first phase of that project is currently under construction. That's with the Astor Levy Playground in Sky Cove Park near Solar One area. And then for parallel conveyance, the bid advertisement is expected in the coming weeks. So for construction progress, as mentioned, I think at the last meeting, we have these kind of sequence of construction activities here on the left-hand side of the slide. And again, we're moving right along in the Stuyvesant Cove Park Solar One area. For most of the project areas here shown on the map, we're still completing the pile installation. For the Solar One area, our crews are kind of prepping to get the flood wall foundation in. So that's really exciting news. We have a couple of site photos that we'll show you here in a minute. The night work has halted along the West Service Road for the next couple of weeks. We'll provide more in the way of updates on that as we move forward. But for any of you who drive in the area in the evening, that night work will be halted. The sidewalk in that area is still closed down right adjacent to Astor Levy Playground for now. And then construction is still moving forward in that East 23rd intersection. Again, always kind of use caution as you go through that area. The anticipated activities, again, we will start the pile driving of the kind of last type of pile that we're doing for this area. So there are the 3 pile types, and we discussed them in the past. So the mini piles, which are the augured piles, will be kind of the next to start in the next week or so. So we're looking forward to that. And again, there's always kind of ongoing utility relocations as we move forward with the project. So this is a fairly recent photo of the sheet piles at Astor Levy Playground. I think the photo we've showed in the past had the sheet piles that connect to the VA hospital flood wall. Those are now covered. And then the sheet piles are continuing here, which will then cross the service road and head under the FDR to then connect with the piles that are being installed at the Solar One Avenue. So it's really exciting progress. We're really excited to share this with you. And the site photos are perhaps the most interesting part of the updates that we could provide here at these meetings. So again, the sheet piles, and then these are the H piles here, and then the micro piles, which again are the augured piles. Those will be starting installation probably next week. And then here in the Solar One area, again, this is that preparation for the flood wall foundation. And here again, you have the sheet piles here and the H piles as well. And then we'll get ready for the foundation here. And then again, it's kind of the same steps that were in that chart as we go through the project area, starting from north and heading south. For community engagement update, we did release our first newsletter a couple of weeks ago. And I think we had mentioned that we were still working on the translations. So we do have the newsletter up on the website, translated into Spanish and simplified Chinese. This is how we will move forward throughout the project on most of our outreach materials. Again, we do use both the Google Translate on the website, but for, again, items like the newsletter and other items that will need to be distributed, we will most certainly translate those now, and moving forward. So if you haven't already read through the newsletter, please do. And then the next newsletter, again, these are kind of quarterly, So the next one will be, is anticipated to be released in July. The decorative mesh call for art, again, for those of you who have visited the newsletter or the site, you'll see the call for art is having kind of a soft launch. We're still trying to finalize some of the wording and guidelines for the application. However, we did want to start letting the community know that this will be, kind of launching shortly. So we do have the flyer and we have the web page here. And as of now, we are looking for submissions around July 16th. That may change depending on when the items are ready to put forward. But please, visit the website, look at what we have up, and please reach out if you have any questions. Again, we're really excited about this. We're really excited to see the community's artwork, again, K through 12 and local artists on the panels around the project. So please do, take a look and reach out should you have any questions. Alda, I think you're on if you want to take over to do the Parks Interim Recreation update.
Yeah, let me try to share my screen. Hi everyone, my name is Alda Chan. I'm from New York City Parks. I'm in the planning division. I'm here to give a quick update on where folks can go while construction in East River Park starts. As Desiree mentioned, or as Ophelia mentioned, that PA1 work is moving forward, but we don't yet have a date. But in the meantime, Parks has still been working on, making sure that there are going to be places for park users to go when that construction does start. Now, this may be familiar to some folks who have been at every single meeting since last year, but I recognize that some folks may be new to this, so I'll try my best to provide some background information as well. First and foremost, construction of East River Park is going to be phased, so that is one key way that we're going to continue to provide access to open space. At the same time, we've also been working on improving a lot of the existing open spaces in the neighborhood. This is a diagram that shows in different colors the types of improvements that we've been making at many of the local neighborhood parks. It's a diagram that's been online and that we will include in what is shared and posted online so folks can look at this at your own leisure. And we'll talk a little bit more about each of those measures later. But first, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about permitting. We know that sports permits have been one of the primary concerns that we've heard about from this community board, and we have committed to accommodating local youth leagues at the local fields during ESCR construction. So phased construction is going to be one of the ways that we'll continue accommodating some sports use at East River Park, even throughout just the construction of ESCR. We are also expanding our permitting capacity by installing turf fields at sites in Lower Manhattan. Our recreation office has been in touch with permittees to understand their needs and ability to use some of these alternative sites. We completed turf installation at Tannehy in 2020. I think we had mentioned this to the board before. We have some good news about progress. St. Barton, the field has been completed. This is a site which is up between 35th and 36th Street, between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Robert Moses, we are putting the finishing touches on this. It should be complete sometime this month. This is up at 1st Avenue between 41st and 42nd Street. So CB6, but we are rejiggering permittees and taking into consideration where people can go. This summer, we'll also be installing turf at Peters Field, which is between 20th and 21st Street, 1st and 2nd Avenue. And we are also looking to coordinate with DOE for access to Murray Bergstrom. And we are also coordinating with Governor's Island. So Governor's Island, they have their own permitting system, but we have been coordinating with them. They've told us that they do have availability, and we've shared the names of our permittees with them. And they've committed to prioritizing accommodations for the leagues that we have shared on our list. And so leagues will have free access to the ferry, but I also did want to remind folks that the ferry to Governor's Island is always free for anyone who's 65 and older, for children who are 12 and under, for NYCHA residents, for IDNYC holders, and for former and active military service members. And for all other folks, it's free before noon to go to Governor's Island, whether you're going to use a field or just to go around. So for field specifically, that is one place where, we are trying to see if there are users who are, that's an appropriate site for them. But we are trying to expand our capacity in these ways. In addition, we are rolling out movable solar field lights to expand permitting slots at existing fields in the spring and fall seasons to help, increase the playable field hours. While construction hasn't begun in East River Park yet, we do have the lights, so we've begun piloting some of their rollout in sites this spring. Right now we have them in Tannehy, and then we do have them at the East River Park mini field. We're getting a handle of how they work in the field, how to best position them, how many to put out there, and we're going to continue to roll them out this fall. And for more information on how to apply for permits, to see which fields are available, or to see who has a permit on which field, you can check out our permitting website. The URL is on this page here. And beyond sports permits, we have been working really hard to make improvements to a lot of our local parks. Our goal with these efforts has just been to freshen up a lot of the local neighborhood spaces in anticipation that once construction in East River Park starts, folks may be going to their local smaller parks a little more frequently. This is a list of what we've completed to date. It matches that diagram that I showed at the top of the presentation. I'm not going to go through every single site now. Again, you'll have access to this deck on the website where you can download it. But in general, we've been doing things like sports coating surfaces like courts and spray showers, painted games, repainting features like play equipment or comfort stations and handball courts. We've also been installing or replacing barbecue grills and putting out things like benches and picnic tables. This is the continued list of improvements that we've completed. And I would say a huge thanks goes out to the park's painting crews and citywide services and borough folks who have been committed to implementing these. And despite the pandemic hitting us and with all the extra burden that's been placed on parks as a result of that. I'm going to quickly go through some photos just to give an example of what types of improvements some of these folks have seen before. If you have been with us in the past, Tannehy, I think is a good example because we did a number of different things here. We installed turf, we partnered with DOT to repave sidewalks, we resurfaced and repainted the basketball courts. We also repainted a number of things in the park. At Coleman, we did sports coating at the stray showers, we repainted the comfort stations, removed some fencing, put in picnic tables. At Little Flower, we repainted playground equipment. We demolished the LaGuardia bathhouse and put in some turf. That is not for field permits. This is just for passive use. So anyone is welcome to go out there, and whether you just want to sit, exercise, throw a frisbee, that's a space for everyone to use. And then just next to the field, we've also installed some barbecue grills and picnic tables. And in March, we also held a scoping meeting for a long-term capital project for this area as well. Here are more examples of sports coating, and then some other new things that we've put in. Dry dock, we just put in some grills. We took down, I've been told, these barricades, so these grills should be open for use. We've also been putting picnic tables. Here are some examples at Griller's Hook. And then these are the remaining park improvements that we'll be completing this spring and the summer. And as I mentioned, the rest of the solar field lights will be rolled out this fall. In addition, another thing we wanted to update folks on are the NYCHA open space improvements. We have committed to making improvements to select open spaces in the NYCHA canvases in recognition that a lot of the East River Park users who will be impacted during the ESCR construction are NYCHA residents. And so we've been coordinating with the NYCHA TAs as well as Councilmember Rivera's office to spruce up some of these existing open spaces. Most of these are complete. We are finishing up at William Wald. So at Reese, we've been repainting the amphitheater. At Campus, we've been putting out some planters and plants in the plaza that's on 13th Street. At Walt, we sports coated the spray shower area as well as the basketball court. At Seward Extension at both Essex and at Broome Street, we've been sports coating some of the existing seating features and repainting some of the existing games. And at Al Smith, we sports coated the basketball courts and the baseball area. Moving on to the neighborhood tree plantings, I believe my colleague Haley Hicks from Forestry was here last month to give a more comprehensive update. Just really quickly, here are some photos from our spring 2021 tree planting effort. We, I think, are at about 545 of the 1,000 trees that we committed to plant in CBs 3 and 6. And I believe there are hundreds more coming this fall. Haley will be continuing to convene the tree planting task force and providing updates to this board. But I just wanted to make sure for folks who missed that, that we're still doing that. Our green infrastructure team is doing site investigations for the 40 rain gardens that we also committed to installing. So work on that is beginning. And Haley probably mentioned this last month as well, but she wanted me to remind folks that we have a Lower East Side Street Tree Care event this weekend. I checked earlier and the program is full, but if you go online, you can sign up to be added to the wait list. And we're glad to see that there's been so much interest in this stewardship event. Another thing that we've been doing is coordinating with Green Thumb, which has provided tools, furniture, and supplies to 23 Green Thumb gardens in the Lower East Side. Here are some photos of things that we've been delivering or installing. Pier 42 is a new open space that we have been at the community board with our partners at EDC who are implementing this project. I won't spend too much time on this, but this is a site that is just south of East River Park for folks who are new to this. The Upland Park, which is primarily passive, has a playground and a restroom here in 2, is slated to be complete in mid-2023, so about 2 years from now. And then a little more recently, the city announced a plan to activate the pier deck. So this would be providing active recreational uses to offset many of the active uses that will be offline when East River Park is going to be under phase construction. And we anticipate that this will be complete next summer, so about a year from now. I know that the community board had a number of points that were, I believe, in a resolution. I'm going to try to quickly address some of those. We can get more into it in the Q&A. But on planters, the discussion with folks at parks is that because planters would require a lot of watering and maintenance, and we do not have water service on this deck. So we don't believe that planters would be successful here. There's also some structural concerns about putting in very heavy things on this surface, which we're trying to activate very quickly. Shade, physical cover to provide shade for tables was another request. Temporary shade structures, I'm told, are not feasible due to capital eligibility and maintenance concerns. We have been looking a little bit more at perhaps some permanent shade solutions. I know we initially had been concerned about maintenance feasibility of shade fabric on the steel structure. We have found some examples that we think could be successful. I think the issue now is more around funding. So, maybe that's something that we can talk a little bit more about. We think, and that the community board can continue to advocate for. That may be, that I think there's a path forward on that with some funding. There was a request for restrooms. We did mention that there is a restroom that's going to be part of the long-term open Upland Park. I think the issue is more the year between the opening of the Upland and the opening of the deck when folks will need facilities. I think that is something that in conversations with the borough we need to figure out what a temporary restroom or porta potty situation would look like here in the siting. I think, again, it comes down to funding. I don't have a clear answer for you, but I think, we should continue to have conversations about where that would be and what type of solution the community board is envisioning here. A shed to facilitate and encourage park stewardship. Short answer, I think if a park stewardship group is formed in the future, we can discuss further at that time. We are excited that the comfort station will have a maintenance closet and some more maintenance space for the Pier 42 area in general. But yes, I think, you know, we're open to those conversations about a shed for a stewardship group. And then there was a question about the fences along the edge. I think you can see it here in the rendering. I don't know how much some of my colleagues may have mentioned in the past, but that fence was actually installed as part of EDC's abatement and removal of the shed. And that was before we had announced or made the decision to activate this shed for public use. And so that was installed in the summer of 2019. And we are running up against a bureaucratic rule around capital eligibility where things need to be in place for 5 years. And so I think the capital eligibility rules are going to prevent us from making any alterations to the fence prior to summer 2024. And I think after that, again, we'll need funding, but we're open to having conversations about that. Really, that's the main reason why the fence is that height. I'm going to try to quickly go through the rest of these. We are also this summer working on making improvements to Waterside Pier. This is not in CB3, but for folks who do use the Greenway and who are up by 38th Street, you may know that there is an unprogrammed pier there. We are going to be installing some fun new elements like turf, seating, as well as some design elements. This is in coordination with CB6 and is something that we're doing to activate a pier up in CB6. In the meantime, Parks Capital is still continuing to do a number of projects within the community. I won't spend too much time on this, but if folks have questions, we can make sure that the capital project managers or folks in the borough who know more about these projects can come back and speak more about those. And then last but not least, I did want to let folks know that we do have a website for parks users. If you visit nyc.gov/parks/ESCR, we have the Parks Escrow website. There's a link to this on the DDC site as well, where we now have a map tool. If you click on the Learn More link, it'll lead you to this map with a scroll down menu. And if you're looking for a specific amenity or type of use, once you select it, it will highlight nearby parks that have that use. And we're also going to be updating it with the closed areas. So we do encourage folks to check out this website. If there are any issues or things that we missed, please do let us know. We welcome your feedback. I am going to turn this back to Desiree, I think, for some additional updates.
All right, can everyone see my screen again? Great, thank you, Alda. That was a great update. So just to keep kind of moving forward quickly, I think we're on our last slide now. What we've heard, I think we're just gonna go in a bit of a different order here. We're gonna start from the bottom and then work our way up. The quarterly environmental report, again, I know everyone is getting tired of listening to this, but it is kind of under its final reviews, and we're hoping to issue it really shortly. So please bear with us again on this first report. We're looking to see if we could perhaps extend the time a little bit, but we're, again, just thank you for bearing with us, and we're looking to get that out very shortly. I think Ophelia, if you are still on, if you'd like to give the update on the funding that we just received.
Yes, hi Desiree. So hi everyone, we're really excited to announce that, and the mayor announced it earlier, that we received almost 140 million in new city funding. This was secured to add more community amenities. All this funding will go towards the Murphy Brothers Comfort Station, a new amphitheater, and flyover bridge. So we're really happy to report this and break it, first and foremost at CB3. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ophelia. And just to clarify, it's the amphitheater cover. The amphitheater was covered under the original design, and it's the cover, which I know everyone has been in full anticipation of. that is now covered under this funding. I think there were one or two other funding questions which are still kind of left unknown from the original questions that we received at CB. But we'll come back when we hear more news about that. But that is really exciting news for us to share. And then for the compost update, Manelli, I'm not sure if you are going to kick this off or if someone else is going to.
Sure, I can start. It's Manelli Jaku with the mayor's office. And I know Christina's on, and my colleagues as well from Parks and DSNY, but happy to report that we have communicated to Christina that LESEC is going to be allowed back in East River Park after ESCR construction is completed. Of course, we expect to begin relocating the educational programming to Seward Park, as well as the actual composting operations to the Rockaway Avenue location as soon as that the prep for that site is completed, which our DSNY colleagues can give us the latest. But I think that this was a conclusion to a very long set and rounds of discussions about this issue. I think Deputy Mayor Vicky Bean captured it pretty well in the letter that we did have some significant concerns about composting and it being an appropriate use of parkland. But I think as the letter states, I think we're comfortable with bringing it back to similar scale operations as it currently exists. So with that, unless Sam or Ben from DSNY have anything to add, would open it up to the.
We're happy with the resolution and looking forward to hosting LESEC's educational programs in Seward Park very soon.
Great, thank you so much, Manelli and Sam. That's great news. It's really exciting that we've moved forward with two of the items that have been on what we've heard for so long. So thank you again for being here with us tonight and for joining our presentation for ESCR. And then Trevor, I think we're ready for Q&A moving forward.
Thank you for that very thorough update. It's about $2.6 billion update. I know there's a lot to discuss. Try and manage this the best way I can by going to community members first. I'm going to ask for everyone to be as brief as they can, knowing that we have at least 8 people who have raised their hand, and that really covered a lot of information. And Michael, I don't know who raised their hand first. My screen is a little different, so if you want to call.
Sure, I have my hand up too, but I'll go to Robin first.
Hi, thanks. That was an incredibly impressive presentation. Thank you for that. I can't wait to see all those updated playgrounds and coverings that you guys did. It's really impressive. I just have a question regarding the permit process for these new sites that are uptown in the 30s and 40s that are covered now for permitting. As you know, and I used to work for Parks, it's an onerous process, Parks permitting, and it takes like 21 days to get approval for a permit. And I'm wondering if there's a way that you all are thinking about giving priority to the people in this community, or this by zip code, or how that might work, so that the people that have losing space in East River Park can be assured that they'll be first in line to get those permits, and also perhaps maybe even assign somebody to work with this community to get those permits done. I know it's a big process. So that's my question. Has there been thought about that?
Hi, thanks for the question. I think I see Ken Conyers, our permitting guru, on the line. Ken, would you be able to take that question?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So as far as the permitting of the new spaces, we have not begun permitting yet because East River Park is still open. When we do permit those places, we will be opening it up first and only to people that were displaced from East River Park. And that will occur for some time. So local organizations that have played at East River Park will get priority at those locations. And then as we see what the usage is from that and how much demand there is from there, then we will expand it at that point, but that's sometime down the road.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to follow up on that, but just for clarification, you said that first would go to people who already have a permit in that park. So if a group is from Staten Island and they have a permit, they will get priority first?
We are doing local groups first.
Okay.
That are being displaced, youth groups that are being displaced. And then from there, anybody else that's being displaced from Eastern Park will then be given preference on the locations.
Understood. Thank you.
David Adams?
Yeah, right now we're seeing getting the funding and the planning for the amphitheater. As we discussed, even heard tonight, the positioning of the amphitheater has a negative effect on the quality of life for the people living near it, and that a reconstruction or reorganization or redirection of the music was always in the background of all the discussions on this improvement. Now that you got the funding, are we going to have any discussion about how to effect that change so that the community is not adversely affected by the amphitheater?
I can take a stab. Maybe I could take a stab at answering that first.
Great, thanks, Alda. I was gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a while since we've convened the working group for the amphitheater. So I think that may be one of the next steps. And certainly here that I think what the last time I joined one of those, the sound concerns, especially around amplification, were very prevalent. I don't think we had any easy solutions because when there is amplified sound, unless you're like building structures around it, there's nothing that can really contain that sound. And the solutions that, when we did a sound study, it really came down more to, I think, sorry, what's the word? Like making sure that, there are folks who are out there making sure that, folks are permitted but again, I recognize that sort of verification of permitting and checking on noise levels hasn't been really working for this community, both at this site and more broadly. So I think it's going to need to be part of the conversation as we continue to move forward with the working group. I don't know the exact timing for that. I think that's something that with this new announcement, we'll need to regroup with DDC on, but I'll see if Desiree or anyone from DDC has anything to add to that.
I thought we were going to direct the sound maybe more towards the East River itself and away from the housing.
I think we could take this question back. That's more going back to the design, and this is more of the construction, related item. So we will have to, or related presentation. So we did note that. I think Alda did a good job of answering that. Again, I think the working group may be the best place to kind of start those conversations. But we can definitely take that back and see what we can do as far as
Thank you. And Alda, can you follow up on that working group? I know there was a group that was meeting for that, and I'd like to see if that could start as soon as possible to address that concern and also the design of that the cover for the amphitheater. It's great news that there's funding for it. We had pushed for it for quite some time, but I'd like to see that group really work on it to talk about sound management and other things. But if we could start that quickly, it'd be helpful.
Great, I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
So that actually leads into why I raised my hand and the question that I wanted to ask, because I'm on that working group. So my question was, we already saw designs for the amphitheater, and it is, slightly angled differently to alleviate some of the sound problems. But there, we had lengthy discussions about the fact that we cannot face it to the river, so it's still angled into the neighborhood, just a little bit more away from the housing complex and more towards the FDR. So my questions were, given that funding for the awning, which is already also designed, because we've seen designs for it, are we now going back to the drawing board to redesign any of the amphitheater? elements. And the second question regarding design has to do with the compost yard and the Lower East Side Ecology Center. I think it's, you know, wonderful that we've come to a resolution. So my question is are we going back to the design of the compost yard that we approved 3 or 4 years ago? And is that being incorporated now into the design of ESCRA, or is it going to be completely redesigned again?
Alda, do you want to take the first and then I'll pass the second off to Manelli?
Yeah, sure. So with the amphitheater structure, yes, for folks who were part of that working group, you'll remember that the last meeting we had, we sort of had a very high level concept for a structure that I think many of the attendees were in favor of in some degree or had positive reactions to. I believe that the plan, and I have not spoken with anyone about this since the money was announced, but I believe that we're hoping to start with that concept. I don't believe that we would be starting from scratch, but you know, there are a lot of levels of design. And you know, I think it's for the structure, we're not anticipating a redesign of the amphitheater itself, which, you know, is part of what Desiree's team is working on constructing. It's really that structure that would be placed within the landscape that's already designed.
Thanks, Alda. Manelli, would you be able to respond? I know this has all just been
this is
new.
This is all breaking news, as everyone knows. So I think we're all still trying to get a better understanding of what that future in East River Park looks like. I do, and I know in previous conversations, Christina as well, have mentioned the previous project. I think, you know, we'd have to revisit that as a team and try to just get a better understanding of whether the conditions that were leading to that project is still what the park conditions are going to be once this project is completed. As we think all know, this area, the current area where the composting operations are located, is going to be raised as part of ESER. So I think we have to take into account the new kind of just site configuration as we figure out what that future looks like. But again, this is all, you know, fresh off the presses. So we'll, you know, kind of look forward to keeping that conversation going with Christina.
Thank you. Next community board member on the Parks Committee would be Valentina Jones.
Okay, one of my questions is, in terms of outreach for the decorative mesh, have you outreached to the various schools in the area and to the various community centers like Rutgers, Smith, Henry Street Settlement, etc.? And then in terms of Pier 42, one of the things I saw recently, because people had talked about shade, and I think this park is called the Island Park. And when you look at that, there's like several different sections. And one of the sections has these various looking like umbrella-like things over the seating area. So I was wondering, had you thought about that in terms of a way to shade the seating area? Because I have to say, I like the way that park looks. And the other thing would be about the public bathrooms. Have you talked to the Department of Health? Because to me, public bathrooms is about public health. If we haven't realized by now that what one person does affects another, I don't know when we're going to get the message. So I kind of think when you talk public bathrooms, it's about a public health issue in terms of preventing whatever is the next wave of some type of community health problem, or rather preventing or decreasing risk. So anyway, and I've seen some things about public bathrooms from a public health perspective. So that's my 3 questions. What public health perspectives have been involved in terms of public bathrooms, the health department, et cetera? Have you thought about those, what looks like umbrella things from Island Park in terms of shading the area, and in terms of outreach for the decorative mesh that you showed? Has outreach been to the various community centers and schools and, you know, institutions like the Henry Street Settlement? That's my 3.
Sure, I'll take the Pier 42 questions, and then Desiree, I'll pass it off to you for the decorative mesh. Does that
Okay,
work?
great. That sounds good. Yep, go ahead.
So for shade, I think what we have had discussions about, and there's some comfort level from a maintenance perspective with, is some sort of fabric or on the steel structure that it remains. I think we have some concerns about, piecemeal umbrellas that would be deployed at this site. I can have folks come back to give you more information. I don't know as much about this particular issue. I will also just say, I believe you're speaking about Little Island, and we do not have a $260 million budget for this pier. So I will just leave it at that. On bathrooms, I hear you. I think we're glad that we're going to be putting a permanent conversation at Pier 42. And I believe that the main issue is really the gap between the opening of the deck and when the conversation, the Upland Park, is going to come online. And so
No, that's not my issue. My issue is the public health of this. That's my issue. I've seen things about the public health aspects of bathrooms and what they plan to do in certain places going forward, so that when one person leaves, there's certain things that happen right there, so that the next person, so that we're not talking about, spreading infections or whatever. That's my thing, not the timing, but the public health of a bathroom, because you're talking public bathrooms, so you're talking people share. One person comes in, somebody goes out, the next person goes in, and something should happen between those two people.
I see. I'll have to follow up. I'm not as aware of this particular issue.
Well, I think one of the agencies to talk to is the Department of Health, because they should be very much these days about preventing another public health situation like we have.
Thanks, Val. I think we'll take that question back, and Aldo will take it back to Parks as well. I think that's the most we could say at this point. But completely understand. Sorry, Aldo, were you saying something? Or?
I think there were other questions also.
The last question was decorative mesh.
Right. So I'll speak to the decorative mesh. So we are just starting the outreach. We're also working with the DDC STEAM program and the folks at DDC who have done outreach to local school groups. And we are working through we will be working through our contacts at Henry Street Settlement and other community programs. Again, once it is completely go time, we'll share it with the community board. We'll share it with the CAG group, and we'll look to our partners and some of the organizations that we have reached out to be on the selection committee to assist with that outreach and spreading the news of the
Henry Street Settlement. Did you say Henry Street Settlement?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Including Henry Street. Yeah. We have lots of
Let her finish, Val.
Okay.
Sorry. So yeah, we have a very long list of contacts who we will be sharing that with.
Okay, I'm sorry. One other question that I had, I wasn't sure. When Ophelia spoke, there was a case about the two, I guess, bidders for the ESCR. Has that been settled in terms of us going forward? I wasn't quite sure when Ophelia spoke.
That's a good question, Val. Thank you. So yeah, the reason why we're moving forward and we were able to issue the award is because that was agreed upon before the lawsuit was filed. So they agreed, that the attorneys agreed that we were able to move forward with the procurement process during the litigation. So we were able to do that. But right now, as it stands, we're not privy to any further information, so I don't know the court ruling. It's still with DDC and city law, so I don't have any information to share. But as soon as we have some information, of course, we always let the community board know. First and foremost, you're one of our important stakeholders. But right now, I don't have anything on the lawsuit.
Okay, so procurement was okay, good. Thank you very much.
Yes,
All right, thank you. Just to follow up on those two issues there, Alda, you said you're going to come back with more information on shading that would be important for us. And you were talking about bathrooms for that short period of time. We've discussed this before, but there are a number of temporary solutions, including porta potties, that could be reasonably priced, considering we're now approaching almost $2 billion. And I think we can get some porta potties in that particular park for the interim period. Just to keep that in mind, if you can come back with information on those two things, that would be appreciated. Michael, who's next on the list? I have some questions, but I'll go last.
There's no other Parks Committee members with their hands up. I'm not 100% sure if Lisa's iPad is Lisa Kaplan.
It is, but let me ask mine first. Yes. Lisa, you can go right after me. The shading, we looked at it for the amphitheater, we looked at a preliminary design, but I don't remember, and Michael, maybe you can help, how far that shade was, because I don't remember a particular design. Was there a more conceptual design or no design at all?
It was, I actually might even have it on my computer somewhere, to be honest with you, but it was sort of like a slatted design. It wasn't a solid roof like what's there now. It was kind of like a slatted structure that covered like the back half.
Okay. So there is some progress on that particular design.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to the sort of improvements to parks, you mentioned Little Flower Playground was improved. A lot of work was there, including demo of the old bathhouse and the installation of the field turf, and some outreach was done for a new scope. I just have a bit of a concern there because there's a lot of work that was done there, and I understand that we want to redo a lot of that work, and there are some playgrounds and parks in that area that really need some help, including the Allen Street malls, which has been our #2 priority for probably nearly a decade, and Cherry Clinton Playground, which still needs some help. Have you looked at, these parks or these areas, in addition to doing Little Flower, since Little Flower was just redone this past year? That question's for Alda.
Yeah, I don't actually have that much information on this. I may just have to come back to you. I know that my colleague, Sarah, who's been at some of these meetings, has been leading the effort on the Little Flower scope. I think part of what's happening with Little Flower is that there was funding that was allocated specifically for that site. And while we were able to creatively put in some of the turf so that site would not be fenced off permanently for the duration while, a capital project is in development. I think when that funding was allocated, it was for that site. But I do hear you on Allen Street malls and Cherry Clinton that I think I've heard in the meetings I've attended, questions and asked for funding for those. The most I can do is I can take it back. I don't have an answer for you today.
I appreciate it because it's nice to see all these improvements and this money coming to our district and new announcements. That's great. But the two areas that we've constantly put on our priority list are just ignored every single time. So it's a little strange that the other parks, which need it also, but our priority list is just not being looked at. And those are the two playgrounds or two areas or two open space that we really like to see improvement in. I'll end it there because I know we're already a little bit over time for this particular topic, and there are some folks who have some questions. Lisa, I'm gonna go to Kay first because she has her hand raised, and then you will be next.
Trevor, sorry to interrupt. I do have those pictures of the overhang. Do you want me to bring them up so you can see them?
No, that's okay. I'm trying to move this along as quickly as we can. So Kay, and then Lisa.
Yeah, I just want to, a little bit off of what you just said, Trevor. And first of all, thank you for the Lower East Side Ecology Center. Really appreciate the mayor's office and everyone's, Carlina Rivera and everyone else fighting for that. But I do think we need some kind of a meeting about the interconnected issues in our parks now, because there are things that, as you mentioned, Trevor, about funding, but we also have a very big uptick in heroin and fentanyl. We have homeless being preyed upon by drug dealers. We have homeless on homeless crime. Our restroom is closed because there are too many needles in it, and there's nobody who can monitor what goes on. And part of our park is closed off. The sprinkler is closed off. So, we don't have needle disposal. We have, so there are a lot of issues in our overall parks in CB3 that I would like to see us have. We've spent a long time, many years on East River Park, as was correct and rightly so. And we're not done yet, but there are all these other parks that have issues that I think it would be great if Parks Department came back and helped us with. And they aren't just isolated to parks. There is no way the Parks Department can solve what's going on in our parks right now. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Kay. And I'm thinking that at some point, maybe that needs to be an agenda item, although summer's coming up, and hopefully we won't have to meet in August, but who knows? Maybe they'll announce some more improvements, but I think that might be worthy of an agenda item. I see, Michael, how many people have their hand raised after Lisa?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So we're gonna, after Lisa, go to those 5 people. I'm not gonna ask Michael to put up the timer. I'm gonna see if we can go with the good neighbor policy, understanding that folks have to speak after you. But if someone decides that they need a timer, we're gonna have to put it up. But I'm really hoping that we can be respectful of each other and keep the timer off for now. That being said, Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you.
I counted wrong at 6.
6, all right, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to ask about the flyover and to mention that additional funds were available for that. Could you just clarify, is that full funding for the flyover, or is it partial just for the design, and what is the status of that? Because my understanding was that was sort of separate and not part of either of the current 2 plans.
So there's 2 parts, right? So for the original ESCR funding, that was separate. That didn't include these amenities. These items that we're talking about, they're on a separate, we got the additional funding. So they weren't part of the initial 1.49 billion. So this is new money. And you're right, for the flyover bridge, it's part of the separate capital project. So that money is different, and it's securely funded. It's fully funded. So yeah, there's
great.
Yeah, it's fully funded for the future flyover bridge. So no worries on that. We're excited. We're happy, especially we know this is important because it helps to relieve that pinch point.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes. So yes, we're excited. We're happy. So yeah. Yes, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about what the timing is then? Is the design, does that just mean the design can go forward at this point? And will this, is it expected that this will go into construction until everything else is complete, or how is that envisioned?
So the design is already done, but we can come back in terms of the timeline and stuff. We can bring that back, and we can have DOT speak to this as well.
I'd appreciate.
Just to clarify, this is Manelli again. The design is ongoing. So we had prioritized some portions of the flyover bridge design, particularly where it would overlap with ESCR, because we didn't want to be in a scenario where we were building parts of East River Park that needed to be ripped out to construct the flyover bridge. So there are already some, there's a lot, not some, there's a lot of coordination that is already happening as DOT is thinking about the design for the flyover bridge. And now that we have the fully funded project, we can now more, we can eject that kind of money and the timing and eagerness to get the work completed through DOT. So that we can, of course, have a coordinated design as well as a construction in due time. But as Ophelia mentioned, we'll definitely have our DOT colleagues join us when an update is available. Just to remind folks, a lot of this is still fresh. The confirmation of funding on the exec plan was something that we also just announced earlier today. So there are a lot of pieces moving, and we'll be sure to bring the team for an update when one is ready.
Okay, thank you so much.
Trevor, you're muted. Do you want me to continue calling people?
Thanks, appreciate it. And I think, I know a lot of the Parks members understand it, but the significance of that funding is extremely important. I think it's a bit understated. I know it was announced today, but that's great news. Michael, you can continue to call the next 5 people to speak. Keep in mind, folks, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so there's 6 people. I'm just going to name all 6 of you, because if anybody else raises your hand, I'm putting it down. Frank Avila Goldman, Christine Dath Romero, Tommy Loeb, Grace M, Diane, and Halal. So we're going to start with Frank and then Christine after.
Thank you, Michael. Just first, I wanted to say, probably like a lot of people will, but a big thanks to Borough President's office, Carlina Rivera's office, and Minnalee. And I know that there was probably a village behind the return of the compost to East River Park, but I just wanted to give my full-throated thank you. My next comment was more of a question for Desiree in regards to the meshing. So K through 12 or local artists, can I read that as K through 12, but then any age for the local artists?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough,
It's
thanks.
for everyone. It's for everyone.
No, it just helps me. So when I disseminate it, I know how to like contextualize it in case any questions. And then I just wanted to alert people because I was involved in the amphitheater working group, that my understanding is that there was an acoustical study undertaken by AKRF back in like May of 2019, where they had 4 noise monitoring locations. And I'm not 100% sure, but I know that they use some Cadna A 3D acoustical model, and I thought maybe they were able to get some baseline. So hopefully we can build on that. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank.
Christine?
Yeah, hi. I just want to really express my deep and heartfelt thank you to everybody on the community board for keeping the issue of the compost yard on the agenda, and all the elected officials and also the mayor's office working to resolve this issue. So we're really elated that we have come to this point, and obviously still a lot of work to be done. And we are really looking forward to I guess restart our discussions with DDC and with Parks Department of how to incorporate the compost yard into the ESCR design. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We're going to go to Tommy and then Grace.
Hi, thanks a lot. By the way, an update on the lawsuit on the bid. As people know, there were only 2 bids received, and the papers have all been submitted to the judge, who is now sitting waiting to render a decision or to ask for more evidence. So that case is ongoing. I have a question on the bid documents themselves. Since a lot of the details, including, for example, soil acquisition, timetables, et cetera, we were told would be revealed once the contract or the bid was received. When will we have access to the actual bid documents that were submitted? That's my question. And I think we all are absolutely thrilled with the Lower East Side Ecology Center, but also the devil is in the details. And my question there is, do you have to go back to the design commission? And for Sam, does this mean the Parks Department has reversed its decision now on composting in parks? Or is it just a decision on East River Park? And how does that impact going forward? And lastly, I want to thank Desiree for getting back to me. Just so people know, there was sort of a first incident up on 23rd Street with the contractor that knocked out gas to the entire waterside complex for 4 days. So I hope that's not the future of what happens with the construction of this park. But over 1,500 tenants were without gas service due to the contractor. So more importantly though, when will they have access to the bid document? And Sam, can you explain how this reversal all of a sudden?
So Sam, do you want to take the parks questions first? I think the question about the design commission, I don't know if you could address that as well for Lower East Side, and then I'll take the last two.
So I can't address that. It's not my area of expertise regarding the design of the compost and the compost yard and what sort of process it has to go through. I think Manelli did address it previously, just saying that we'll have to, the design teams will have to address the conditions, see if those conditions have changed the conditions that they were assuming when the original design was produced. So I think that's there has to be some regrouping there, because this is, as she said, a late-breaking decision. Regarding parks policy on compost, that's a complicated question and it's a good one. So our parks policy, which is the city policy, right? The city policy, it's not exclusive to this agency, but it's the city policy on compost in parks, was, as you, I'm sure you who asked the question recall, informed by the Raritan Baykeeper case from a few years back, that state Supreme Court case that found that certain uses of compost on parkland were kosher and certain uses weren't. And that case has been subject to, the ruling in that case has been subject to different interpretations by different groups of lawyers. I am not a lawyer, so I want to give that caveat. Different groups of lawyers across the city. Vicky Bean, who issued today's statement, is herself a lawyer. So I got to defer to her. And her determination was that the type of compost and the scope of compost practiced by Lessig in East River Park does comport with the Raritan Baykeeper case. So with the findings in Raritan Baykeeper. So the case found, right, the case that is sort of our touchstone case for, what's okay compost and what's not okay compost in parks, found that, if it's a broad, really significantly large compost operation that serves communities far outside the immediate park area. Now I'm cribbing. This is, not exactly what it says in the case, but this is sort of my own layman's terms. Outside of the area, then that is not it's an acceptable use of parkland. That's alienation. What Lessig practices does not constitute that. So what Lessig, the scope and scale of that compost does not constitute that. So no, there has been no change in park policy vis-a-vis, what is an appropriate use of parkland for compost. There has been, I think, and you could characterize it as an adjustment in our interpretation, or in the city's interpretation of this particular instance.
Great, thank you, Sam. Ophelia, I don't know if you want to take the bid documents question. I know, Tommy, just because the lowest bidder has been kind of selected, there is still the procurement process that we need to go through before everything is finalized. And I believe it is not until Ophelia, is that correct?
I can take that part, yes.
Yeah.
So the final mass mailing plans and specs will be shared with the community board soon. The letters are being reviewed and finalized. As for the actual bid documents, I'm not sure if we can share with the public. I have to take that back because it may contain some confidential information pertaining to the contractor. So I have to take that back. I'm not sure if we can share that or not. So we'll take that back, Tommy, and we'll let you know. But that's a good question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Michael, I believe we have 3 more folks to speak.
Grace is next. Then we're going to go to Diane and then Hillel. Grace, go ahead.
Oh, hi. My question is really about the parks. I saw the presentation and thank you for doing a lot of improvements on the parks, and you have some lovely pictures. And my concern, or what what I want to address is the Clean Park, Clean Cherry Park. I know that you'll be doing touch up and repainting, but is there more compared to what Coleman Park is getting, the skate, where they're getting tables and then more design elements, as where Clean Cherry Park is barely getting anything? And with all these closing of the parks and my neighbors, and as a parent, I'm concerned about where I can send my kids to play, because it's barely anything. It's really like adult fixtures, and then you're just repainting like the benches and the apparatus. So there's no added elements for kids or other age groups. And then there's the basketball court, and you're redoing the handball court. But is there any other elements that you can add or address and make it nicer in terms of design wise?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that comment. I think one thing I may have neglected to flag as part of the overview of some of the quick improvements that we've been making at existing local parks is that part of what we were trying to do when we were coming up with this list of improvements was to identify things that we could do quickly with in-house resources in advance of ESCR construction. I think there are many ways in which parks can be improved. Oftentimes what may come through this committee are larger capital projects that go through a very standard process that takes several years and requires a lot of funding. And there are, I think, certainly a lot of cases within many of our community boards, and certainly this community board as well. And I think Trevor was mentioning sites as well that will require, or there's long been a desire for capital projects and larger overhauls. So I think, for example, with spaces like Coleman and Tannehy, we did take a look and identify, some quick things that we could do with in-house resources. I think certainly if there is desire or ideas, we can certainly take that back. But, that was really what we were trying to achieve with some of these, like the in-house interim improvements, not wanting to take entire playgrounds and neighborhood parks offline several years for capital projects at the same time that construction is going to be starting at East River Park.
My suggestion is something like a quick thing, maybe something like what you did and show, like hopscotch or things like that, that make it more friendly or kids friendly, that they can actually use, or paintings that they can do on the ground, or activities on the ground. So that doesn't take much capital, as I suppose. So would that be something that can be achievable?
I can certainly take the suggestion back. I think we were trying to wrap up as much of this as possible, but we'll take it back to our crews and we'll see what we can do.
All right, thank you. The last two speakers will be Diane and then Halal.
Hi, this is Diane. My question is about the Greenway. When Parks began the update tonight, I was actually in East River Park, and there were hundreds of people on the Greenway walking, running, riding bikes. So I'm wondering, in the spirit of alternatives and mitigations for the East River Park construction, do you have an update on alternatives to the Greenway that people can use safely?
Thanks, Diane. I believe that would be a DOT request. Alda, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So Diane, we can certainly take that back to DOT. I know there are planned kind of detours, and as part of kind of DOT's commitments, there have been improvements to certain greenways or bike lanes in anticipation of the ESCR project. However, I don't think we're really prepped to speak on that. So if that's a request and we need another update on that, Trevor, perhaps we could kind of incorporate that into a future presentation.
Yes, I would appreciate that update for the next presentation.
Yeah, and can I just add, especially with the focus on pedestrians, because we know that there's already been some discussion about what to do about additional bicycle lanes and that sort of things, but we've never gotten an update on what the many, many pedestrians will need to do during these closures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
And our last question is Palau.
Yes, hello. First, I want to thank you for keeping the noise issue from Luther Gulick Park on your agenda, and it really is a quality of life issue. We residents living close to the park basically would like for you to look into the closing curfew around sundown, 8 p.m. My question would be, in addition to a curfew earlier, so that we don't have this noise continuously, and say after 8 now and it's still very noisy, is there something that you can do, let's say, to contain the sound, something along the southeast side of the park, which is Columbia Street, Broome Street, where a lot of the noise generates and travels to all our apartments? I don't know if there's any technology that you could install, but something that could alleviate or contain the sound, at least to some extent, within the park itself.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that this.
Michael, go ahead. I want you to go ahead, and then you can do the other thing. Go ahead.
Sure. Hello. So this particular presentation is about the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, and this team is here to speak for that. They're not involved with Luther Gulick. They do work for Parks, but many people work for Parks Department. So that team is not on this call, but it's already been noted by you and by Robin, and so it's something that hopefully and the Parks manager was on when it came up. So hopefully it will be addressed in some way. So
thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. So folks, we failed to do something at the beginning of the meeting, and that was welcome some new community board members. They're not officially part of our committee yet, but they have just been appointed to the community board. And one of the things that they do is they attend various different meetings to see what committees they might want to join. So welcome to the Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Committee. And I believe there's 3 of them on with us tonight, Jeanette Kim, Daniel Tannenau, and Jamie Felber. So welcome, guys, and whatever committee you land on, we hope you make a great impact. And now, sorry, now we're going to go. I don't know, Trevor, do you want them to quickly introduce themselves, or should we move on to?
No, that's fine, and they will if they choose to join the Parks Committee. Just a note for the new members who are on, the Parks Committee has the shortest meetings. We typically only go 45 minutes max, maybe an hour. Just a
Liar.
Note. Just a note. But thank you for attending.
Don't forget the treats we get.
Yeah, there's lots of treats, chocolates when we meet in person. But you did pick a pretty good meeting to observe, and another interesting topic that we're going to go into. I'd like to thank the ESCR team first, and if you want to stay on a list, and we have something that might be interesting. But we're going to go on to the plus pool agenda item. Kara, do you need to share your screen? She
all
already
set
has.
up already.
Thank you. If you want to introduce yourself and introduce the project, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kara. I'll try to keep it quick since you guys have a lot on your agenda, and I'm happy to answer any questions even offline. My name's Kara. For those, I did speak very briefly at the last meeting, the Parks Committee meeting, but here is a little bit more about our project called Plus Pool. So the project really came out of the idea that we're surrounded by water that we can't access for swimming. And a group of artists and architects and designers came up with the concept of Plus Pool, a water filtering floating swimming pool that filters the river water through the walls of the pool and cleans 1 million gallons of water a day. It's combined as 4 pools in one. There's a kids pool, a sports pool, a lounge pool, and a lap pool, all stuck together in the shape of a plus. Can you guys see the slides? You guys seeing this? Yeah. It's really a community-driven project. We formed a nonprofit about 5 years ago to work on the development of the project, and it's really driven by the people that come together to help us realize it. It was an idea of designers, but now there's 1 million people involved, a ton of different groups, from naval architects to environmental lawyers to, all kinds of funders. And that's really why we're here today. Our nonprofit is was founded with an educational mission in addition to developing the pool and eventually operating it once it opens. We do a couple things. We teach kids how to swim and be safe in the water. We use Plus Pool to engage students in STEM curriculum, and we teach about water quality, filtration, and civic design. There's a couple different curriculum that we have, and we also work directly with a couple different schools in the 5 boroughs. We collect and disseminate water quality data for free for public access. This is something that we do to inform the design and development of the pool, but we also do as an educational tool. And we try to use design to educate, to share that data in unique, creative ways. This is a light sculpture that was installed in the river in 2019 that changed colors based on the quality of the water in the river. And we had a accompanying website that talked about what was happening in the river and what was changing and when it was safe to swim and when it's not, and why. So with Columbia University, one of the main things that we've done on the science side is we've developed a real-time water quality monitor. This is kind of some new science that can help inform the safety of a pool, of the kind of pool that we propose. And we've patented the design and engineering of our filtration system for Plus Pool that is potentially scalable to other environments. In 2015, we conducted feasibility studies in and around the city to identify technically feasible sites for our idea. And included, several sites that we basically just gave to the mayor's office and said, look, this is where we could go. Where we think where the currents were okay and the depths were okay. And in 2019, EDC released an RFEI for an East River swimming facility that supports the kind of river swimming that we propose, which we of course applied for. And since then, there's been a lot of really great community support in and around Lower Manhattan, the Lower East Side, and Two Bridges for what we're doing. Some of you guys have provided letters of support, so thank you so much. And in May 2021, after, of course, some things slowed a little bit during COVID after the RFEI, but we just received a notice to proceed with due diligence on the project in the waters just north of the Manhattan Bridge and Community Board 3. So we're super excited about that and taking the next steps to realize the project. This is a general idea of what that is. We're in the process of working with EDC now on these next steps as really the landowner or water owner in this case, and continuing our project fundraising, which we're primarily funding this privately by fundraising through our nonprofit. We want to speak more and more with you guys about ideas, not just on the project and its potential services associated, but also the actual programming that we would be able to produce on the pool. Do we want local, a dedicated swim hour in the mornings for locals in the neighborhood? Do we want senior swims? Do we want, certain programs for kids? So that's the kind of work that we'd love to do with you guys and the larger community as a whole. We're planning for hopefully project piloting as early as next summer. We're even trying to hopefully see if there's a possibility of making a swimmable pilot. And with that, with the information that we gather from the pilot, we can move into permitting phases for the project. So there's still lots to do, but it really can only begin with having this area identified in which we can work. And it really, because this project is so unique and it doesn't fit into any existing regulatory structure that the city has, it's not by definition a swimming pool or a beach or a barge or a boat or any of these things. There's a lot of unique conversations that are happening with agencies, and we're really gonna need the community's support in that. So we hope to be able to partner with you guys on all of that work over the coming years, in addition to, as I said, designing and developing the project itself and the programming around it that can best serve the neighborhood. And so that's my quick presentation, but I'm of course happy to answer any questions for that anyone has.
Thank you. And I'm going to save my questions to the end, since if you look at that picture, that pool is right behind where I live. So I've got some unique questions. But that being said, committee members, and I see you, Michael. Michael, I see for CB3 members, I see you and Robin and Kay.
Correct.
So if you want to go first.
Sure. I mean, I know right now it's somewhat of a conceptual thing, but so like this picture we're looking at, is the tube to the left the walkway, how people get there?
So this is a proposed services building that would have, check-in, showers, locker rooms, other things that are required for the facility. And then, yes, that would be the entry point.
Okay.
And then this is I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the second one is a secondary form of egress.
Okay. So, and I'm assuming that these are accessible entryways to people with disabilities?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, that was my main question, but, and I know that, you've got a couple of years in planning this, but I do think that the ideas that you've already said about community programming, I think would definitely be beneficial as far as, maybe separate hours for Lower East Side residents, or, partnering with a lot of the community organizations in the group who organize swims for them or something like that. I might attend a water aerobics class if you did it, who knows? But yeah, I mean, I think everyone thinks this is coming this summer because this picture has been floating around online for quite some time now. So I think people are going to be looking for a pool that's not there for a couple of years. But
absolutely.
I get
some calls to the office sometimes about when it opens. I think the rendering is just that imaginative.
Yeah. And so, and this structure gets moved out during the winter months, or does it stay there the whole time?
This would be a permanent facility. There is, that's also something we'd love to discuss as proposed uses during the off season of swimming. There's potential designs to bubble it and enclose it and use it for alternative uses. I mean, enhancing public space in other ways. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there that we can discuss and determine together.
Okay. And my last question is, and it's only because it looks like in this rendering that you have that there's people outside of the pool in the actual river. So is the idea that like kayakers would come up to this as well, or is the main entry point one of those access points?
The only entry point to the pool would be through the check-in. But I think, we love the idea of having this be a shared area. It is public space. We would potentially have access through this project, but it's public space. It's not our space.
Okay, thank you.
So that's love the kayakers if there's the ability.
And my last thing is to thank you for your patience in waiting for 2 hours to make a 10-minute presentation.
You're welcome.
Trevor, do you want me to call on the next people, or?
Okay, I believe.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, so this was approved by first of all, it looks really interesting. And I bow to the greater wisdom of the people who live near there. But I'm just wondering, we didn't pass a resolution in support of this, but it sounds like it's already a bit of a done deed. And the other question is, does it need, I imagine it would need New York State approval. And the other slight question is, with Little Island, there's been, like with the High Line, the draw to a neighborhood from something like this. And have you thought about the impact on the local community? But you don't need to answer all these questions now. It's just any thoughts you have.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of, done deal, I think EDC would definitely disagree. We're excited again to have this notice to proceed. Obviously, the permits are not secured. There are a series of city, state, and federal permits that are required for this kind of project. Again, they're not. Some of them don't even necessarily exist yet. But maybe there would be some sort of variance that we would seek or something like that. And we would, work with the community on all of that. So in those ways, it is not a done deal. But one thing we cannot do, we can't seek those permits without a site, without the potential to talk about it in a particular area. Okay, like how are we going to connect to power? How are we going to connect to all the, like there's a lot of site-specific elements that are necessary to even do that work. And then your other question was, forget.
Impact on neighborhood.
Oh, yes, of course. And that's also part of the community engagement we'd like to do with you guys in terms of, not just the impact and how we would facilitate, capacity and allow for users to come and visit the pool, not just the people that actually would go to the pool, but even spectators to view it, but also the services to people that would come to the area and, potential for, concessions or things like that. But yeah, definitely thinking about that a lot.
Thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Well, I remember when you first came here to us, it was quite a while ago. This is very cool. My grandfather used to swim in the East River without a pool back when you could, so this is amazing. I have a question about sort of entry and exit. Like, so how long would it take to walk out there, from that that facility that you have?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I imagine it's similar to walking out to about halfway through to the Pier 35.
Oh, okay. So like to the end of, okay, so not very long. And then I guess everything would be, people couldn't bring stuff out there. They would all leave it all in that building. So no change of clothes or water or food or strollers or anything like that. Have you thought about that stuff?
Yeah, so there's obviously certain requirements that the New York City Parks Department has for public pools. As an operator, as Friends of Plus Pool would be the operator in this case. I think the Parks Department is not necessarily interested in adopting another pool, and that's really what we've been the assumption we've been operating under. But I think we would have additional freedoms, perhaps that aren't. Some of the restrictions that are provided by parks since we're not parks, but also, following that precedent for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of your community outreach might be to ask people about that stuff, because I know I know with city pools, you can't really bring anything into a pool, and that can cause a problem for some people with little kids.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Yeah, we've already heard some rumblings of things like, oh, we would love for this instead of what it's like at public pools or whatever. And so to the extent that we can accommodate, we certainly will. And that's a great idea to solicit that kind of feedback also as part of user experiences.
Right. And then I guess any emergency that might happen would be the same, I guess, by boat or by foot, I guess. There's no vehicle, right? No vehicles at all.
Yeah, that's a great question too. No vehicles, but there will likely be some stipulations through the permitting of it as a bathing establishment. It's kind of sort of in between like what you see at a beach and what you see at a pool. And so yes, we definitely expect first aid and well, obviously there'll be first aid on the pool through the staffing of the facility itself, but then in addition from the water as well.
Right. That's really cool. Well, thanks. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And I'm just going to go through some of them. And Kara, I first appreciate, as a resident living there, your outreach to the folks who live directly in front of this this proposed location, primarily because a lot of times the residents who live there are often ignored and folks go to other places, ignoring the people who live right directly in this site. So I appreciate that. I have some general questions. what will this structure be deemed? Will it be deemed a vessel? Will it be deemed a structure? What's the designation for this particular structure?
That's a great question that I can't answer.
Mhm.
That is definitely part of the due diligence phase that we're going through now. And really, I should give hats off to EDC because they, you know, now can really help us navigate some of those details and understand where we might fall. Again, the uniqueness of this project is there isn't any sort of existing. It doesn't follow a linear pathway of permitting like any other project. And so by definition, is it a vessel or is it a, you know, does it go through DOP? Does it go through, you know, small business services through the waterfront division? There's a lot of, you know, creative thinking that's going to have to take place. And we really will need the support of the city in order to do that and the community.
And the other thing is we've heard continuously from EDC about the fact that they could not build any structures along the Esplanade, including bathrooms or concessions. And we've heard that for many years. And how are you going to get bathrooms and locker rooms in this site when EDC has continuously said it can't be done?
Yeah, so we were told that as well. It was very thoroughly outlined in the RFEI. And so that is one of the reasons we proposed a floating facility, the way that it's kind of just hanging off of the Esplanade there. In terms of connecting to power and water and all of that, that's something that we will have to just design in collaboration with EDC and or, you know, determine a way to make it fully circular, you know, on its own. I imagine that's not going to be the case, but we'll be able to tap in hopefully somewhere. But
so they're saying, EDC saying that any of those structures will actually be floating in the water off of the river's edge then.
Well, I mean, as you can see in the drawing, I don't know, you can still see my screen. The little,
okay.
Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Here? Yeah, so that is the facility that I'm describing here. And what the details of that, of course, have not been designed. That is something we definitely have to do in collaboration with EDC and the community. We'd like to. I mean, what are other things that could potentially be supportive there of the community, right? In terms of concessions or, you know, restrooms, blah, blah, blah. But that's one of the reasons it was proposed in the way that we proposed it here is because of those restrictions.
And can you go into, I know because some of my residents who live along this particular area have participated in the swim classes. Can you go into a little detail about those swim classes and whether they're free or they're for low income?
Yeah, absolutely. So our current programming that I just loosely spoke on is we're currently just focusing on learn to swim programs for low income youth. Youth of a little older, thinking that if you haven't learned by the time you're a certain age, you're probably not going to learn. So we're just trying to get as many people to learn as possible that would otherwise not. They are free. We're actually about to begin registration, and we will be sending and sharing information with the community board and through our partnership with NYSHA in the coming weeks. We've already surveyed a lot of residents and gotten amazing feedback from them. But our interest is definitely to expand and grow that programming, to do more graduated classes. Once we have a facility, we'll be able to do those things, of course, but even in the interim, working with the local community to do more advanced classes, maybe even adult classes, and eventually, even graduating that to lifeguard training and employment at the pool would be like super great. So all of that, expanding we're currently a small, grassroots nonprofit who has really just, had this idea and kind of created this nonprofit around the idea and trying to push it. And now that we, have this, formation of a partnership happening with the city and we can move forward, then I think the opportunity to really kind of dive deep into some of our long-term goals is finally coming to fruition. And of course, once the facility is built, then a lot more of those programs will happen. But yes, currently we're offering free learn to swim classes to low-income youth. We'll have about, we'll be able to serve about at least 150 families this year. We did some fundraising earlier in the season to support that, and again, we'll have registration information coming out to you guys soon. That we did do this. We've done this program in a lot of different neighborhoods all over New York City, but we have also done it. We didn't do the program in 2020 because of COVID, but in 2019 we did it in the Lower East Side and the East Village.
And earlier you also mentioned about fundraising, and I believe in the RFEI it required for your organization to do all the fundraising at 25 million, I believe, or at least 25 million. Is that still the way the city's looking at this?
Yes, that's what I understand.
Okay. The pilot that you're anticipating for next summer, what does that look like?
That's something that we'll definitely come back with as we, understand more from EDC on what we think might be possible at the site, for sure. I mean, 100%. So stay tuned on that. There's certain things that we believe are required for the eventual permitting of Plus Pool to collect data and, certain things for preparation of these permit applications and the regulatory. And so we're kind of designing it around that need. And then we can start thinking about, additional components that might support the community and the community's needs.
Okay. And my last thing before, because I see some folks have their hand raised, but often I neglect the area where I live in, so I want to make sure I get some of these concerns or questions. And there are a number of resident associations who have, to Case Point, who have provided support, but conditional, considering that there's going to be a lot of folks coming down to this particular pool, even if it's just to look at it. And Rutgers Slip is a very narrow street, which already absorbs a lot of the traffic from Pier 36 and Pier 35. So we have some concerns about that. But some of the general concerns, because I know you at some point, and maybe even tonight, you're looking for some support since other community boards have supported this, and we managed to win the swim lottery, is that there must be security, and it's going to have to be 24-hour security, because I know if I'm a teenager or younger or an older adult, someone's going to want to get in that pool at 3 o'clock in the morning. So there's got to be 24-hour security. In terms of local community, I think it's got to be more than just an hour of swim in the morning. There must be a substantial amount of hours dedicated for the local folks who live in that, for the folks who live in that area. Bathrooms are obviously a plus. I mean, you're going to have to do it. There's no way you're going to build a facility without bathrooms. So that's something we can put in there, but obviously that's something to think about in terms of planning and use and maintaining a bathroom that's not parks, not EDC. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Enhanced maintenance in that area. It's already challenging with there being just open space. So adding a pool to that area is going to really take a toll on the area surrounding it. My understanding is that Plus Pool will run this pool, not parks. So you'll be responsible for just about everything going on here.
Absolutely, yep.
And just because I know some folks in my building have talked about this, and my neighbors, is that to consider not immediately, because I hear you on the young folks swimming, but a lot of the older folks would also like to learn how to swim. And living in New York City, just never get that opportunity. And sometimes people have that life goal that somewhere down the line we look at adding adult swim classes, because I think it'd be neat to do it in this particular pool if this happens here. I'm going to go to the questions that we have. I see 5 people have their hand raised, but for the committee members, just from my personal the stuff that people have written me or talked to me, are generally in support of this with the conditions I mentioned, especially with security and maintenance, because this is going to be interesting. But if we could start to think about sort of resolution language. But I'll go to, and Michael, I don't know who raised their hand first. Might have been Frank or Daniel, one of those. Well, let's go to Jeanette. Let's do this. Let's go to Jeanette, who has not asked the question first.
Thanks for recognizing me. This is so exciting. I actually went to a talk a couple weeks ago that you hosted, Kara, about this. My first question is it anchored in anywhere, or does it just kind of sway in the water?
It'll be anchored, yeah, definitely, and tethered to the riverbed. It'll need to rise and fall with the currents, of course, or with the tides, of course. But yeah, it will not. It's not just sitting out there.
Got it. It sounds like it'll still move a little bit while you swim, which would be really interesting. I don't know if this has been mentioned already, but what kind of cost are you assuming that this will be for people who are trying to attend, for people specifically closer to that neighborhood or in that neighborhood, and then people maybe from outside the city? Is there some kind of like pricing structure that you guys are thinking about that looks more favorably upon people who live nearby?
Yeah, our business plan is actually to have it be free and open to the public all the time. I think some of the programming, you know, if we do water aerobics, since there's clearly some interest, maybe there will be a charge for those kinds of programs to cover costs for the instruction and things like that. But the business model is designed to have it free for public access.
Great. And then last question, how clean is the water like immediately around it? Like how much of a halo effect does it create to like clean the water, or is the water only being cleaned as it enters the pool?
It's sort of both. I mean, you know, since it's not chlorinated, you know, people are actually also kind of dirty. So we have to account for that for what's called bather load. And that's really about the rate at which we're flushing the water through. So it really is like a beach in that way. But how clean is the water? I mean, the light sculpture that I showed in the presentation, I don't know if you remember, that was this, you know, public artwork that changed colors in the quality of the water in the river. A lot of the reason we did that was to demonstrate that the water is actually not as bad as people think the majority of the time. And when it is, what's happening, right? We wanted to show that and explain it and really kind of make it a little bit more transparent and accessible through this visualization. You know, the water quality that we're seeking through this filtration system is that it's 24/7, you know, swimmable, but really, you know, the river conditions are met naturally, or meet swimming standards naturally quite often.
I don't know if I'd risk my own skin to validate that point, but thanks for that. I'll eat the rest of my time. I'm good.
Thank you. I see Daniel has not asked a question, so we'll go to Daniel. Daniel?
Hi, thank you. And thank you for the welcome, Trevor and Michael. I'm not sure if the community board will put me on your committee, but I personally love the idea of the plus pool filtering the water and swimming in the actual river water. I was an original Kickstarter funder for this project, as well as I brought water from the East River over to Hudson River Park when you were testing your filters. But I have heard from friends and neighbors in the community that like this feels like another thing that was plopped down on them. So the community, as always, things that I love, as I find out at the waterfront, especially at this committee, are not what everyone in the neighborhood wants. As well as it, people kind of had an idea of this pool, but then when it showed up in May in news articles on their waterfront, there was a strong reaction. Similarly, I think that especially the pricing and the access is going to be super important, because we do have nice city pools. And I wanted to mention there's reasons for those rules about not bringing things in, which are not always fully thought out. But if the neighborhood still has to go to their public pool while people that are willing to pay are going to this pool, that's not a benefit for the community. And then I had two more technical questions, which might actually end up going more to EDC. But I don't like, I've seen other environmentally sensitive improving projects get not allowed by DEC, the state, because it's shadowing the estuary floor. And this seems like a huge thing that would need a ton of replacing estuary and open water somewhere else, and I don't know where that's going to be, as well as EDC has been sitting for 7 years, 8 years on $1 million to give access to the actual East River. I know it's not for swimming, but at the beach underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. So I would definitely like to see that happen before this pool. Thank you.
I should probably have led with the fact that you know, there's a lot of misinformation being spread in the press. You know, we really just released the rendering of the project at the site that we had put in our RFEI with the permission from EDC and announcing these next steps, and it kind of spiraled. That's, I guess, just how the media works. I mean, there's a lot of people that wrote things that I didn't even talk to, and they didn't come to the source. So please, everyone should know they can always, you know, speak to us directly about any kind of questions or issues related to it. And yes, there's still a lot of hurdles to get through, the DEC one being one of them. There are some precedent projects that have been realized as of late that I think might be helpful to that regard. But again, we hope that if you know, the community can support those kinds of requests, it's going to go a long way as we kind of navigate some of this new innovative regulatory processes.
Thank you. Let's go, and Frank, I see you, but I want to go to two people who have, or one person has spoken. Christina.
All right. Hi. Let me just start my video. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Thanks so much for your presentation. I think it's an interesting project. I have a number of questions. I don't know if you want me to like ask them all at once or go one by one.
If you could ask them all at once, and Kara, if you could take notes, just for expediency.
Okay. So the first one, like, I just wonder if you could go more into like how the filtration process works. Like, I think that would be helpful. And then number two, I know you said like, you know, the pool will be anchored to the riverbed, but how are you guys thinking of like in terms of, you know, like rising sea level? I think that would be critical. And then I just want to also echo what Trevor said earlier about classes for adults. I learned to swim as an adult only a few years ago, and it was a lot of money. So I think, you know, if you could do some sort of outreach to, you know, like the people who live in this neighborhood at the very least, like that would be a great thing. And also there's a ton of, you know, affordable housing in this neighborhood besides NYCHA. I live in Knickerbocker Village, which is affordable housing. There's Two Bridges Tower, Lands End 1, Lands End 2. And then fourth question, you mentioned that the access to the pool will be free, right? So I'm wondering, like, is there like some sort of like a registration, like time limit for people, you know, swimming in the pool? And then last question, the bathrooms, like, are they open to the public?
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I should have made my presentation longer. These are all great questions. So filtration system, how does it work? The filtration system is embedded in the walls of the pool. Part of the pilot will demonstrate that. So, you know, I would encourage you to come and visit it. We would love to make it an actual exhibition space and public programming space where people can come and really like understand what's happening. It primarily consists of actually a lot of off-the-shelf parts that have just been kind of reconfigured in a novel way that treat water in different ways. There's our patent is actually online. I'd be happy to share it if you want to like get really technical. The anchoring, how does it rise and fall? I actually shouldn't even speak to this in detail. I should, you know, have my engineers come and talk about to these details. But you know, there's a tethering system that does that. I am probably not the best person to speak to that, but it is designed in a way that has thought about all of that. the classes for adults, 100%. I mean, this has always been a long-term goal of ours and something that has been an interest of us. You know, at the moment, we really are a small organization that, you know, just has limited capacity in terms of staffing and funding. But you know, that's something that if it doesn't happen before the pool is open, which is actually the intent, it will certainly happen once the pool is open. You're right, and you know, we're interested in serving all New Yorkers, not just NYCHA or low income or even affordable housing, just everyone. You know, we envision even perhaps even a graduated scale of payments for families who can't afford it, but certainly we do actually open up this free Learn to Swim program that we currently offer to anyone really that it's not exclusive for NYCHA necessarily, anyone who needs it. And we want to do more and more and more. I mean, always, we're only limited by our own capacity. What else did you say? Oh, reservation system. That's a little bit forward thinking for us right now. Definitely thinking about it. I mean, I think because it's still far off, there's you know, there's probably going to be tons of new tech by then, right? I mean, we're kind of envisioning something a little bit like City Bike, where, you know, you can look up and see if there's space available and you can kind of reserve it, but there'll also be, you know, people that can pop in. You know, there's been a lot in the past year on time ticket entries and things that have come out, so we can study that and understand what works best and is most seamless, and hopefully design something that works really beautifully for everyone. And what was your question about the bathrooms?
Oh, is it open to like the general public?
Oh, right. So I think that's going to be part of our conversations with EDC and how, you know, how even where they're placed and how we hook up to water and all that. But yeah, we're happy to design it in a way that, you know, there's certain, as Daniel was saying, there are certain reasons that there are rules at public pools, and they're there for good reason. And some of them are like, you know, you have to walk through the showers or, you know, to get to the pool and things like that. And so, you know, it might require a separate space. Like maybe we just design a separate space that is just for the park users, and then there's one for the pool. But yeah, we're definitely thinking about how we can service the needs of the community as part of it. Because if we're doing it anyway, why not, right?
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'll go to Frank next.
Thank you, Trevor. Hey, Kara. I am a resident in the area as well, and I was just curious, actually. It was sort of a question, but I actually, during this process, got a bunch of my answers from a lot of the resident leaders in the area who told me they haven't heard from you. So I was going to propose it as a question. Have you spoken to a lot of other developments in the area, NYCHA and affordable housing? But instead, what I'm going to do is I will just connect you directly because I know in particular that there are a lot of people like Aixa Torres and Nancy Ortiz who have been fighting for a pool in this community for the greater half of almost a decade. So they're very keenly interested in this project as well. But my actual real question, though, aside from that, then would be, I'm an avid swimmer. COVID gave me a little bit of a dampening. I go to the Y generally, but I couldn't figure out, and maybe I missed it on the website, what are we talking about in terms of size? In particular, I'm curious for the lap component.
So thank you for that. We will talk to anyone who's willing to. So please connect us. Some of the people that you mentioned actually supported us, like gave us letters of support for the RFEI actually. So we have spoken to some. Obviously we haven't spoken to everyone in the community. We, you know, presented to the community board along with every other community board before we even responded to the RFEI, but we would love to talk to anyone who is interested and wants to hear from us. And we've done our best to express that even in online and things. You know, again, our capacity is small. We're primarily at this point a volunteer-led organization. We do have some staff positions, but you know, getting back to everyone on social media is kind of difficult, but please connect me. I can leave my email or Trevor has it. And the pool itself, it's Olympic length. It's really Olympic sized, just, you know, cut in half and then crossed. So the lap pool, you know, the short end of the lap pool is not Olympic length, but if we opened it up in that design, it is Olympic length and could actually potentially host, you know, Olympic trials or things like that. Not full on Olympic kind of events because it's not Olympic size, but it is Olympic length.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I wasn't being critical in that. I just wanted to clarify in terms of who you made outreach to, but specifically some individuals who have been really at the forefront, like you said. Thanks.
Yeah, please connect me. We'd love that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Grace?
Hi, Kara. Thank you for the presentation of the Plus Pool. I'm a resident at 82 Rutgers, which is right directly behind the pool would be going directly behind us. I'm also a member of Friends of Pier 35, so this is a very exciting for us. It's such an amazing project that we're so excited to have it here and that this area was picked for it. There are some concerns, pros and cons about what Trevor and Christina spoke about, and the thing is, the pros is definitely about having kids learning to swim. That's always a plus. There's no public swimming pool in our neighborhood. The furthest one is Hamilton Fish Pool, which is all the way down by Houston Street. So I'm glad that this is here, being that we need something. Some kids and adults need somewhere to cool off. So this is so convenient as a placement. Again, I do want to remind you that this is along some of the private developments of low income, like my building, 265, 275 Cherry, Lands End 2. So I hope that we do get outreach first in terms of prioritizing when our residents can use this, as opposed to, I know that, yes, there's NYCHA and stuff, but we don't want to be forgotten about because this affects us directly. And in terms of traffic wise, where everybody comes directly from the subways, from the bus down Rutgers Slip, and that affects us in terms of crowds. Just like right now where the Van Gogh is happening, you see stickers that is stuck along the streetway, but it's all pointing to Rutgers. So I just want to mention that. My question to you is the capacity level of people in the pool, the section. What is the max capacity? And then in terms of barriers, what do you have in mind in terms of production, in terms of protection where people don't fall off, or kids when they're running, and schools. What schools do you currently work with, and with swim meets and competitions? How does that work? How do you prioritize it? Does the section get closed off and when they have a permit? Those are my questions.
Okay, I was not doing a good job of taking notes, so you might need to help me.
Okay.
Yes, we again, our intent and the design itself is designed to serve everyone. That's actually how it was even conceived. We want to serve all of the residents of the neighborhood, and we look forward to working with you guys to understand, the best way to facilitate that. And yes, even particularly the residents nearby. The pool will have railings and protections, to protect people. You can't really see them in this, rendering in the same way that they'll be realized, but in the detailed drawings and as we get into some of that, it'll become more apparent. But yes, there'll be safety barriers, in addition to just a ton of staffing in terms of public safety, really going kind of above and beyond requirements. We have some amazing aquatics facility consultants who have really even designed a preemptive, operational plan for this kind of facility and how it might work. That was all in our RFEI to the city. The how does swim meets work? Also a question for a future time. But we just wanted to make sure that in terms of the pool design, it could potentially facilitate that, because that could also be a revenue generator that would support the project in the long term and continue to make it free for people, who for the public when they visit. What did I miss?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. So when the end of the day, how do you gate it off or close it off at the entry level? Because there are concerns about how there are a lot of daredevils who, actually climb the wire fence by the porch swing stage area. So they will attempt to climb over the gate. So what type of mechanism or, for protection?
Truth be told, it has not been determined yet, primarily because, we haven't even really determined exactly how and where we can put this facility as an entry point with the city. We really just at this point have presented our proposal to EDC. So those details will certainly be determined. And yes, I mean, safety is of course a priority for us. So, assessing how that would be both from a design perspective, but then also an operational perspective will be a huge part of the work ahead.
Okay.
Once we know exactly where, and how people get in and all that.
Right. And then also like the capacity level of the pool, what's the number of people?
Yeah, that will be dictated by permitting as well. There may be restrictions that keep it under 500 just for floating facility certain permitting. But, in terms of the physical capacity of the pool, oh my gosh, I should know this off the top of my head, but I can get the number to you in terms of like how many people we can physically fit. But then it one of the reasons it's not super committed to memory is because it will be dictated by like the Department of Health when they understand, when they grant a bathing establishment permit, most likely.
Thank you. I see two more questions. We're going to go to Val first and then Nancy.
Question is just, can you put your information in the chat?
Sure.
Thanks.
Although somehow it's disappeared, the chat button for me.
Okay.
Stop sharing my screen. I can stop sharing, right? Okay.
Yeah. While that's happening, let's go to Nancy.
Hi. So I don't know if you remember me, but we met when you presented at Community Board 3 a couple of years ago. And we're excited because this is something that we've been asking for a long time. And so far as priority for the community, I think that those that live on that side, not specifically on the Rutgers side, but from Montgomery or even further, I would say a quarter of a mile left or right, they should all get priority because we all live there. We're a lot of our developments are affected by traffic no matter which way you go, because we get affected by traffic through Pier 36 with the Van Gogh, with the party boats. So, I mean, we're all impacted one way or another. But my question is, when you do decide to give permits for the pool, how would that affect the usage for the community? And will it be more permitted than community usage? That's one. Number two, the neighboring schools, would they be able to get like pool time, for example, where you would dedicate an hour or 2 hours, whether it's in the morning or early afternoon, to provide the pool for the summer camps for the kids in the community? Safety, security, how would that work? And thank you. We're getting our pool.
I do remember you. Thank you so much for your support. In terms of the permitting, so I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but permitting of the structure would not come from us. That would come from outside agencies. But in terms of access, who would we provide access to? We will need to, in order to make sure that it is free and open to the public during the public hours, whatever those would be, all day or whatever, we would need to make sure that we can also, offer it to certain aquatics groups, for programming that, to generate some revenue again, to support the free access. But tons of people have expressed interest to us. I don't know specifically how yet, we would facilitate those requests, but that also is again, is some of the work that we hope to do in partnership with the community in terms of designing that and understanding like the needs, the desires, and how it fits into our operational plan and business model. For sure, like school groups, we'd love to host them. I mean, one of the reasons we created the nonprofit is because, we believe that this is the first access to the public waters, that is going to happen in over 100 years. We used to swim in the rivers all the time, and we've been cut off to it, and we didn't believe that this should be anything other than public, right? So that is our goal, is to provide a public service. It is not to create a members only club or anything like that. And again, that's one of the reasons we incorporated the way that we did, and we have the business model and the fundraising model that we do. But yeah, absolutely, summer camps. Safety and security, again, it hasn't been fully assessed. Once we understand exactly where the facilities building can be placed and how users would access the facility, we can understand how that security is in place, much like you do with any park, which you would do with, in fact, hopefully it'll be a little easier than perhaps access to Pier 35, for example, because there's only really one stream or one access point. But yeah, all of that will definitely be assessed in this phase of diligence.
Also, I have one more question. Employment. Will they provide employment and give priority to members of the community for employment? And also, would you consider like sectioning off maybe 2-3 days a week in the morning for kids to learn to swim, for swimming classes?
Absolutely. We hope to not only employ locals, but even host our own lifeguard training programs in order to make sure people have the skills in order to do that as part of our programming. As discussed, we'd love to dedicate certain times to groups and assess with the community what some of those programming ideas would be. I know everyone has their own thoughts, and we want to hear them all. And will continue to be, and the programming can even evolve over time. We can try things out and see what works, and then try more things, and see what's successful and what people really like. So absolutely.
Great. And Trevor, please give her my information, because I really would like to have you, I would like to host a meeting with you and the members of the community on the water side.
Sure. I'm going to go to one last question because we are at 9:08 and we still have district needs.
Thank you.
For the community members. I see Lanson 2RA has a hand raised, so we'll go to that. And then I'm going to write down some of the concerns, and we're going to do a bulleted point type of resolution. But go ahead, Lanson 2.
Hello, this is Tanya Castro-Negron. I'm the co-chair of Lanson 2 Resident Association Incorporated. We just came out of an extensive meeting regarding the project for the waterfront, the parking lot area. So I apologize for jumping in so late and getting the end portion of this meeting. I would, however, appreciate if our information is shared with the individual or organization that did the presentation, and that we be included in all future correspondence or any decisions made on behalf of the waterfront as well. We definitely advocate for our residents on our own. That's Lanson 2 Resident Association. And we are also part of LESERRC. So we definitely are accessible, available whenever you want to, include us in whatever decisions need to be made regarding the waterfront. So I just wanted to jump in and just share that. And I will share our email address in the chat. That's all. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Kara's email address and contact information from Plus Pool has been in the chat as well. So anybody can grab from there that wants to get in contact with her.
In fact, I would recommend using her email address so that there's no need to go through any other communication channel. You can contact Kara directly.
Yeah, just please be patient with response times is all I ask, because we get a lot of, you know, we're still a small team. We're in the process of growing and expanding, but just be patient with us in the interim, please.
Absolutely, and thank you for your efforts. We appreciate all that you're doing, and the absolutely content about the proposal as well. We're just so, you know, excited about being involved in this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited too.
All right, thank you. So committee members, they're going to just go through some of the things for a bulleted point resolution. So here's what I'm going to say, and if you want to add anything, you can. And we're obviously in the beginning stages. I think Kara emphasized, but I don't know if people really understand that this is really the beginning stages. Even if we get a pilot in the water next year, there's still a lot of hurdles to overcome and still a lot of money to be raised for this particular project. So we're just going to do a very broad resolution without going to specifics about times, because I think it's a little bit too early to talk about that. We will put community involvement, as we've heard from Lands End 2, Knickerbocker, to Bridges Tower, Vladeck, Gouverneur, and other folks about supporting this particular project. So I want to make sure that we keep community involvement as one of the top things. But I know, Kara, that you're obviously going to do that, and you're here for the community board to start that process. So here's what I've heard: 24, and some of it's from me. 24-hour security, that it's free for all, everyone. Bathrooms are obviously going to be part of the proposal. You must work with the RAs directly in that particular area and other community groups. I think it's important to work with community groups, but as I've mentioned before, a lot of the times the RAs in that particular area are ignored. And I don't want that to happen, especially since I'm one of those folks who live directly across from that. That there must be an examination of foot traffic in the area. And I know that that's not the easiest things to do, but I know companies like Sam Schwartz and other groups do that, because we're really talking about a bather load. I think it was 546, if I remember, or 446, a total bather load of folks coming to that particular area, and folks who want to see it. I mean, I imagine people are going to come from around the world who just want to observe the Plus Pool, which is a good thing, but we need to look at the impact on the particular neighborhood with foot traffic. Enhanced maintenance. That's going to have to, and I know it's going to be challenging because it's part parks, part EDC, is it SBS, is it Plus Pool, but that's got to be a part of the equation. To do outreach to schools and all types of low-income buildings for the free swim classes, and at some point to incorporate adult swim classes. And I understand that that's a challenge, but I think that's important considering that we're entering, this neighborhood is entering a point where it will become a NORC. And if any other committee members have any other bullet points to add, keep in mind that we're keeping this fairly general, but you know, nobody?
Well, Trevor, don't
Okay.
we want to say that we support funding? Because I didn't hear that they're funded.
Yeah,
So I
what,
think an important bulletin is that we support funding, because none of this happens if they don't get funded. You know, this is all a nice conversation if they don't get funded.
all right, so we'll add that support funding. I see Kay has her hand raised.
Yeah, I think somewhere in there, an appreciation for the amount of work that's already gone into the planning and the offering. And I do think that maybe learning from the people who did the High Line, what steps could they have taken to make sure that the community didn't wind up being impacted? And I don't just mean traffic, I mean also the gentrification and this is a big problem with upzoning the minute there's an amenity. So
Okay, how would you, I'm doing bullet points, but how would you word that?
oh no, really?
Yes, yes.
I think Michael could figure that. No, Maybe just do outreach both within the community, but also other organizations that have faced this, such as the Highline community, and what lessons did they learn?
Okay, so I'm going to interpret that as
good. See, I knew you would.
Yeah, I know. It's 9:14. To do outreach with other organizations who face similar projects like the Highline, to learn lessons about the impact of gentrification of new projects, something like that.
That's fine.
Any other additions? That being said, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Ryan?
I will make the motion first to pass the.
Yeah, that would help, Michael. Yeah, it's 9:15. That's why. And I'm missing anyway. I can't watch any basketball, but go ahead, make a motion.
Motion to approve the resolution in support of Plus Pool.
Second.
Second.
Roll call. All in favor?
You're muted, Ryan.
I didn't know if that was like all in favor and we just say yes, or it's a roll call.
Well, yes, I'm rolling it into a roll call, but we still have other things to do, but yes.
Okay, roll call, here we go. Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Kay Webster.
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, yes. David Adams.
Yes, I could just raise our hands.
Yaron Altman.
Too late.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Robin Chattel.
Yes.
Josephine Velez. Troy Velez. Okay.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for the folks who stayed on to listen to the Plus Pool presentation. We still have a little bit of housework to do, so our next topic is district needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
All right, good night for those folks who want to leave. Now, we did start the district needs, or we pretty much completed it last month. I don't think we have any other comments. I failed to do one thing, and that was to rewrite the paragraph on Pier 35. So if Susan is on, yes, I didn't do that. I admit it, because I always neglect my area for some reason. But I will get that done by July, where we're going to finalize it. Susan, were there any other comments? I think Susan has.
She's here.
Susan, are you there?
Text her, she might be.
Yes, sorry, I wasn't listening at all. I'm sorry.
Well, I said I'll repeat it, but we've done most of the work for district needs. I failed to do one thing, which is to rewrite the paragraph on Pier 35, once again neglecting the area I live in, but we don't have many other comments, and I know we want to finalize this in July. So was there anything we need to talk about?
Yeah, when I sent you the copy today, it had a few comments written in from last month on who is going to do what. There was a community garden comment. Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. Michael probably doesn't have it. Do you,
I don't have it, no.
All right.
Yeah.
No, it's me. Let's see if I can send that real quick. Well, nothing's going to happen really quickly. But. Michael, you should get it in about 10 seconds or so.
Okay.
And some of the comments, I mean, I had the comments, but it didn't say who was doing what, other than you, other than the one for you.
Yeah.
Trevor, I'm sorry, I got the email, but there was nothing attached. What you forwarded me was your response to Susan, not
Yep.
her initial email.
Yeah, I'm just making sure this one has it.
All right. Am I just scrolling to find a note at some point?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the first one is Baruch House's bathhouse, the status of the RFP.
Susan, we did get an update on that, right?
We did, but I don't think any of us remembered it.
I can put some language, and I remember that basically it's been issued, there's been a response, but they haven't done any movement on it. Sorry, Ryan, can you put in the notes that Trevor's supposed to take care of that?
The next one is under rodents.
Oh, that one I've asked for, and I'm still waiting for it.
Okay.
So the next one is about maintenance of new tree streets and bioswales.
I think that was just a bullet point that was, I don't know if that was a bullet point that was inserted or whether we needed more for that.
We just inserted that bulletin board.
So that's okay.
Yes.
And then the other one was under all gardens under New York City. Find out if other parks or gardens have water access Bruckner boxes.
That definitely wasn't me.
That was me, and I did not get the information. Sorry.
And then
Ryan, can you place
I just wonder if it could just be a more general. I don't know if we need the specifics. It should be that every park has water, has Bruckner boxes or other water access if there are plantings there.
But if we're discussing a need, we need to say, is this something that we do need? And if we do, you know.
I think I remember from 2 years ago when Carlina's office first did participatory budgeting, that one of the proposals came from the community gardens groups, and it was about equal access to water and electricity and things like that. So there is definitely a disparity, and I'm wondering if is that something that Bill Lasasso might be able to tell us if somebody.
Bill, well, either Bill or Charles. I was thinking also Charles is the one who's the head of the garden group.
And
that's exactly what we said last month.
Yeah, I think Kay was going to call Charles.
Was I?
Well, Ryan, can you give Kay a broken star and she can get a full star when she finds out that Kay is supposed to call Will or
Charles.
Actually, yeah. I mean, I know some of the park folks here who lead your coalitions may know. I know the Bruckner boxes in my park, but some of the rest of you, if that's true for you, I think the newer parks, the renovated ones, have water access, but
some do, not all.
So Jamel, I will ask Jamel, and I'm
Okay.
going to make a note now so that I don't forget.
Gotcha.
So and I think the last one is just that Trevor is going to do.
Yep.
And then in July, I'm getting the library thing. I'm wondering if composting needs to be changed now that we know that it's going to stay in the park.
I did do some homework. I did redo this, but I don't know that we should take it out until the i's are dotted and the t's crossed, just because.
Okay. So if you guys would send me your sections, I could, update the base document and have that ready, for you next month.
Okay, will do.
Can there was one thing that I kept forgetting about the East River bit. When somebody brought up the idea of the bikeway, or I think they called it a greenway, that when East River Park gets disrupted, there's no, I remember this, we had talked about this, and we had it in our resolution. The idea of trying to have a greenway that provided a possibility for the bird life and the insect life that relies on that section of that long strip of park, that there was some compensation or some possibility for those creatures to have access to another place to go, because it is going to be incredibly disruptive of bird life and bugs. So I'm happy to try to think of language and maybe even ask the Lower East Side Ecology to come up with language, because it was something that they brought up. And actually, I meant to say it in the long meet that we just with Parks Department that was just on. So,
Can I ask one thing though? If this is for the for July 2022, is that something that needs to be decided before that?
No, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, I don't know if this is for district need, but this is more of a general ESCR thing that we need to look at, but not for district needs.
Yeah, yeah. So that's fine. If we could, somebody help me remember to ask Parks, what have they done in terms of that, our resolution. Anyway.
So I think, and also if you send an email to, forget her name, they do discuss a lot of those topics in detail at the CAB and then bring it to the community board. So, and the city is sort of forced to answer it, even if they put it off for 2 or 3 months, they're forced to answer questions. So if you
nobody's forced to answer our questions. Yeah.
They are forced. It took us months, but they
no,
gave
but
us
look,
some
it
good
worked.
news.
I just want to say, yo.
Yeah. Look, it's 9:30 too. It worked.
Yeah.
All right. So is your, I think that's the end of our agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
That motion is seconded.
Second.
Ryan, if you want to take our final attendance.
Troy Velez. Josephine Velez. Robin Chattel.
Yes, I'm here.
Michael Marino.
Thanks for going backwards. Yes.
Valentina Jones. Valentina Jones.
Said yes. I heard it.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Yaron Altman. David Adams.
Yes.
Oh, Kay Webster.
Yep.
Ryan Gillum. Yes. Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks
Herding
for
cats
having
once
me.
again.